Thank you everybody for joining us this evening. We're going to go ahead and get started with our public meeting. Today is May 5th, 2026. We are here for the purposes of a Salt Lake City School District Board of Education Public Board Business Meeting. Thank you everyone for joining us. Before I get started, I do want to make some welcoming announcements of our classified association groups and their presidents who are with us this evening. For Buildings and Grounds, we have Sam Gilchrist. For Child Nutrition, we have President Tanya Slaughter. There you go, Tanya, getting some shout outs. For the Salt Lake Education Association, we have the ever-present President Mike Harmon and Vice President Chelsea Acosta, all the way back from DC. Thank you. And for SLCSD, the Salt Lake Association of School Administrators, they're represented by Tom Luthi, and Principal Nicole Palmer is here in person or virtually. I haven't seen her yet. There, hi Nicole. Thank you for joining us tonight. We'll go ahead and move on to the Pledge of Allegiance, and I have asked Salt Lake City Mayor's Representative Jennifer Newell to our education work here to lead us in the pledge. Thanks, Jen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jen, for stepping up and doing that for us tonight. Well, this is really exciting. This is probably one of my favorite performances that we have in our school district and at school board meetings. We're really excited to have the Glendale Mariachi Band with us tonight. There you go. as you know, today is Cinco de Mayo, which is a really, really important day for Mexicans and Mexican Americans alike. This is when peasants who fought the French in the Battle of Puebla in 1862 actually won that war. So, you know, when you think things are really, really hard, think about those really, really cool folks who stood up to the French and fought a really, really valiant effort, and that's why we celebrate today. So I'm really excited. I don't know, Dr. Grant, if we have anybody that's presenting our Glendale Mariachi Band tonight, or if we're just inviting them up to get started. Yes, please, come on up. Mr. Sam North.
Buenas tardes, somos Mariachi Los Linces de Glendale, un grupo de músicos principiantes de Glendale Middle School. Good evening, we are Glendale Middle School's Mariachi Los Linces de Glendale, a beginner group of mariachis just started this year. This is an after-school club. They meet once per week to rehearse. And we're very excited that our mariachi will carry as a class next year at our middle school. We're very excited to perform for you.
Thank you. And board members, if you want to go down to the front, that'd be awesome.
All of y'all gonna miss me next year, I swear. All of y'all. Sure.
Cariño que nació de la nada, sin saber se convierte en sublime obsesión. Tú eras para mí sin pensar que algún día tú serías mi amor. El tiempo te dirá la realidad y yo te adoraré una eternidad. Te quiero y no puedo negarlo, si es preciso gritarlo, gritaré sin cesar. El tiempo te dirá la realidad y yo te adoraré una eternidad. Cariño que nació de la nada, sin saber se convierte en sublime obsesión. Te quiero y no puedo negarlo, el cariño que siento es cariño inmortal. Cariño, cariño, cariño. Somos los mariachis, los linces de Glendale, y acabamos de tocar Cariño, y nuestra segunda pieza va a ser una canción titulada El Pollito.
Hello. Hello, we are Mariachi Los Linces de Glendale, and the part you just played was Cariño, and our next part is El Pollito.
I'll stand up for you guys. I'm proud to do that. I need to be up on your shoulders
Alright, we're gonna look at Jason first.
Thank you. Okay.
Music stands.
All right, let's give one more round of applause for our Glendale students.
They represent Glendale.
now move on to our next item of business. We do have the consent agenda on our agenda at this point, and I will entertain a motion from the board.
I move that we accept the consent agenda with the amendments sent to attach public comment to the minutes that was provided by Helen.
I second.
Any further discussion? Ashley?
I just wanted to clarify something with our business administrator. I had a constituent question about lunch debt and about raising the lunch fees, and that if debt non-repayment is the issue and we raise the price and people don't pay, we've in fact grown the size of our debt rather than solved the deficit. So I wanted to give him a chance to speak to that question before we vote on consent.
Yeah, I'll just note, so the reason we're looking at that price increase isn't related to the lunch debt. So lunch debt's when people eat but they don't pay. So these are people that not on free and reduced, or it could be a second lunch, third lunch, etc. So yes, in theory, if you're charging more and they don't pay, that debt increases. But the child nutrition program doesn't take on that debt anyway. By law, they can't. So when we're looking at balancing the program, that debt's not a factor in this increased discussion.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Brian?
I just wanted to have a clarification on the board minutes where we were talking in the prior study session that was in April. I just wanted to make sure that I was understanding correctly. The board asked the policy subcommittee to look at and develop policy around a community engagement committee and then bring that back for board review. Am I understanding that correctly? Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And the only thing that I would add is under the topic that Ashley brought up with school lunch fees, I did get some outreach from Gina Cornea with Utahns Against Hunger, and she is really interested in supporting the district in any way that she can through her organization, if that's data or brainstorming, so she might be reaching out to us. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote, starting with Board Member Williams.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Charlotte Fife Jefferson, yes.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Annie Romano, yes.
Brian Jensen, yes.
Amanda Longo, yes.
All right, that motion passes. Thank you, Board. We'll now move on to the next portion of our agenda, which is our request to speak portion of the agenda. I do have some speaker guidelines for public comment that I do want to read and that the board has asked me to read before each public comment. The board enjoys the opportunity to hear from the public during the comment portion of its meetings. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to remind you of our board rules governing your comments. 1, the total time reserved for public comment is not to exceed 15 minutes, with all speakers or groups limited to 3 minutes. The board will not allow public comments during board meetings that are slanderous, obscene, or otherwise violate state or federal law. 3, employees and/or their representatives may not use the public comment period to address issues that should be raised through existing formal communication channels or establish grievance or negotiation procedures. I'd also like to explain that unless the speaker's topic is already on the agenda, state law prohibits the board from taking action on items raised during the public comment period. However, if it seems appropriate to the circumstances, I may direct district staff to follow up with a speaker on the topic discussed. We have a full sign-up sheet here. We may not get to everybody's comment. Once we hit 15 minutes, we can ask the board if we want to continue or extend that time. Our first speaker this evening is Nicole Wilbur.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Nicole Wilbur, and I am a district social worker. With me in attendance are other social workers and many supporters. We want to thank you for the time and care you put into making decisions for our schools. We acknowledge that funding decisions are not easy and that many factors must be considered. We are also sensitive to the fact that staffing cuts have been made across the district. However, we are here tonight to advocate for school-based mental health services provided by social workers because they are foundational to student success and safety. In our role, we sit with students who are struggling in ways that aren't always visible in the classroom, experiencing things like anxiety, depression, family instability, and trauma. Students who are trying to focus on learning while also carrying things no child should have to carry alone. For many of our students, the support they receive at school is the only mental health care they have access to. Their families may not have access to therapy outside of school due to cost, transportation, language barriers, or long wait lists. When school-based services are reduced, those students often go without support entirely. School social workers also directly support the district's core priorities. When students are struggling, they're not able to fully engage in learning. By addressing these concerns, we improve attendance, support literacy and academic growth, and help students stay on track for graduation, college, and career readiness. Mental health support is not separate from academic success. It helps make academic success possible. And most importantly, social workers save lives. Often in our role, there are moments when students sit across from us and tell us that they don't want to be here anymore. And in those moments, we are the ones completing safety assessments, making sure they are not alone, and connecting them to the support they need. School social workers are part of the safety net that catches students in their most vulnerable moments. When that safety net is stretched thinner, there is less capacity to respond quickly, thoroughly, and consistently. Fewer positions means increased caseloads, slower response times, and reduced ability to provide the care that students need, which has real consequences for student safety and well-being. We recognize that there are no easy choices when there are funding pressures, but we urge you to consider moving forward that investing in school social workers is not an added support but a necessary one. It is an investment in student safety, academic success, and the overall health of our school communities. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Nicole. Our next speaker this evening is Blair Hodges. Thank you, Blair.
Hi, I'm Blair Hodges. I'm a parent of a child in this district who's directly benefited from school social workers at Emerson Elementary. And I know from firsthand experience that the help my child received had huge ripple effects. Good behavioral health is the foundation of effective education. And because of my son, I'm a lot more familiar with the system than I thought I would ever be. And I want to talk about how cutting services will damage our district on several levels. First, consider the impact on individual students like my son. Without repeated behavioral health assistance, his academic performance plummeted. He had more absences. And by the way, he's a pretty privileged white middle-class kid with two really involved parents, and he still struggled so much. So I can only imagine what less advantaged kids face without what my son already had. Second, consider the impact on the entire classroom. We're not just talking about individual students. Before my family tapped into school resources, my son disrupted class a lot more often. I saw a lot of myself in him. He got along with peers less, and he became miserable. He didn't like school. He didn't want to be there. And other children struggled in his class. His teacher struggled. And that's the third point I want you to consider, is the impact on teachers. Their primary job is to help students reach critical benchmarks in things like literacy and math. We all know that, right? Without the help of social workers, though, our teachers are increasingly asked to manage behavioral and emotional problems, and most of them aren't really trained to do that. And that further burdens our teachers, who are already stretched really thin. Rates of anxiety and depression are skyrocketing amongst youth. Social workers are on the front lines. They do anxiety screenings and depression screenings because we know that early intervention helps students stay regulated and engaged. Neurodivergent kids need this help early and often, and so do kids who've experienced trauma. But as I mentioned, it affects every kid in the classroom as well. The caseloads are already huge. And social workers are going to be more stretched if we cut these services. More students will reach crisis points, and we can expect schools to be confronting emergencies more often rather than proactively building strong academic pathways up front. What other priorities should come before these things? I would argue none of them, because good behavioral health is the foundation of effective education. When our district invests in student behavioral health, we're not taking resources away from other more important academic priorities. We're making academic success and growth possible for everybody. It is the foundation, so we should be talking about expanding the services, not cutting them. If anything, gosh, Getting a little, okay, calm down, Blair. What I want to say in conclusion is that when students are supported early, they do better. Teachers can teach, classrooms can function, and outcomes improve for everybody. Again, good behavioral health is the foundation of effective education, and you can help us keep that foundation strong. Thanks.
All right, our next speaker this evening is Abby Nielsen. Abby, thank you for joining us.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Abby Nielsen, and I've been with the district for 4 years, and I'm currently in the role of school counselor. During my time as a school counselor, I've partnered closely with our school social workers, and I've seen firsthand the critical role they play in supporting our students and families. Social workers are often the bridge between school, home, and community. They support students facing some of the most significant challenges: homelessness, food insecurity, trauma, and ongoing mental health needs. They don't just respond to problems, they help prevent them, creating stability so students can actually access their education. In our schools, counselors and social workers work together to proactively identify students in need through mental health screenings. This collaboration allows us to catch concerns early and intervene before they escalate. Without school social workers, that capacity to identify and respond to student needs is significantly reduced. Simply put, fewer students will be seen and more will fall through the cracks. Social workers are also essential in times of crisis. When a student is in immediate distress, they are trained, available, and ready to respond. Their presence ensures that crises are handled safely and effectively, allowing the rest of the school to continue functioning while the students receive the care that they need. The loss of 6 full-time school social work positions is not just a staffing adjustment, it's a direct loss of critical support for our most vulnerable students. As counselors, we depend on our social work colleagues every day. Without them, the gaps will widen and the students who need the most support will be the ones most impacted. I urge you to reconsider these cuts and prioritize maintaining these essential positions. When we support social workers, we are directly supporting student safety, mental health, and academic success. Thank you for your time and your commitment to all students.
Thank you, Abby. Our next speaker this evening is Kathleen Curry Griffin. Kathleen, are you with us tonight? All right, we will move on to our 5th speaker, Aaron Torres.
My name is Aaron Torres. I'm a neighbor of the Roslyn Heights Sports Complex, and I share a property line. Let me preface my remarks with this. I know that none of the district administration, Dr. Grant, Mr. Astle, none of you probably want to hear another word about this property. All involved may even feel like they did the neighborhood a favor in building this and opening it up to the community use. I'll bet you as a board don't want to spend another penny on this property as well. Let me forewarn you then, without your deliberate action to remedy the legally defined nuisances this property has created, your days of hearing about this mess are just beginning. Approximately 1 year ago, I was shocked to see multiple acres of plastic grass and multiple semi-truckloads of ground-up rubber tires installed a few feet from my garden. I was also shocked to see 80-foot-tall stadium-height lighting towers being lifted over our properties, spilling fugitive light into our yards, into our family rooms and our bedrooms. I was shocked to see an expensive netting system installed all across the north side of the field that was supposed to contain balls. Anybody could tell you, any soccer player could tell you that that netting was not going to work. Hundreds of balls have entered my property, one striking me in the head. A year ago, I came to this meeting. I took 3 minutes to express my disillusionment with the obvious errors in judgment that were unfolding on the curtilage of our properties. Maybe you remember me. I hope so. If not, I tried to be nice, but I was frustrated. I complained, but I have also offered reasonable solutions. Amanda stepped up and was helpful, but this problem is beyond her singular power to address, and that's why I'm here today. I suspect this problem began with the former representative, Mrs. Sweat, that led the district into this, but left a gap in accountability, clearly. I'm asking you as the board to open an investigation into this project. Who is accountable for the decisions that are creating multiple provable, legally defined nuisances adjacent to our properties and on our properties? We are not just shaking a stick saying we don't want this in our backyard. The complaints so many of us have shared with the district admin are experienced in our homes daily, and I believe they are solvable. In a demonstration of arrogance, my neighbors and I were reminded by your administration about their sovereign status. I believe the independence given to schools by the state was to enable education, not to build poorly designed, poorly managed sports complexes. Are all of your constituents, I would ask, do they all know what has been spent on this complex? A short list of the additional problems my neighbors and I are witnessing and living with from our private properties are noise ordinances, just a few more seconds, fugitive light violations, toxic fumes, soil contamination, stifling heat, the heat island effect on our adjacent properties, massive water waste, thousands of gallons being sprayed on plastic to cool it off in our desert climate. Constant use of the field by non-sponsored school groups, individuals, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., and sometimes later. And I could go on and on. It's a free-for-all, and there's no management. It was poorly thought out, and we'll be back. Thank you.
Thanks, Our next speaker this evening is Anique Monfrey. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm so sorry.
Thanks for letting me come. I wasn't sure I'd be able to make it tonight. My name is Anique Monfroy. I am a parent of 2 young children in the Salt Lake City School District. One is 9, and she goes to Ensign, and one is 13, and she goes to Clayton. I am home alone with my kids, and most of the time we are experiencing a lot of emotional trauma in our home. It has affected my kids severely. Their mental health is suffering. I never in a million years. First of all, before I say this, I want to thank all these people right here, all these social workers and counselors, for going into this profession, for loving our children, and for giving their time and caring for us, parents and our children. My 9-year-old is suffering so bad right now. She has depression, she has anxiety, OCD tendencies. My children, my 2 girls, have been fighting a lot. It's affected the stability of our home. I haven't known where to turn. I haven't been able to get them counseling because of money and different circumstances. So I turned to the social workers in the schools, and I just want to say that they have gone above and beyond what they can do to help. There have been days where I didn't even know what to do because my younger daughter doesn't want to go to school. So I know you care about attendance, but it's not just what you see on the surface. Our children are suffering. They need help. They don't know where to turn. They don't even know how to communicate their needs of what they need. And the social workers and the counselors are trained to help them. And I don't know where I would have turned if it wouldn't have been for the social workers and the counselors. There have been days where the social workers have reached out to me and got me out of bed and helped me come in and to just call and to make the calls I've needed to get the help for my children. I had to get my younger daughter, who is 9, who wants to, she tells me almost daily she wants to die. She has such severe anxiety. I was able to get her in contact with her pediatrician because of a suggestion from her social worker to get her on medication. She's missed so many school days, it's embarrassing to tell you. But we're on a right path now, and I wouldn't have been able to do it without all of these wonderful people. If she would have missed appointments because we would have been spread thinner, I'm just asking to please preserve their jobs, and please don't cut their jobs. It's very important. We can't overlook mental health. As a society, we're comfortable talking about our physical health. No one wants to talk about mental health, and we need to. And it needs to be talked about, and we need to deal with it. as a whole and as a society. So please consider this my heartfelt plea.
Thank you. Thank you. How are we doing on time? We've got time for one more? Are you good? Okay. Our final speaker this evening is Joelle, and I can't read the writing. I'm so sorry, Joelle. Is it?
Newwinkle.
Thank you.
I know. My married name's Good evening. My name is Joel Newwinkle. Thanks for hearing me out. I am not only a parent, but I'm also a teacher at Washington Elementary School. 3 years ago, I adopted my great niece, who was homeless, living in cars, storage units, had moved to Mexico to live with her grandmother, coming back, and I took her in. She has been with 3 therapists outside of the school. I finally went and begged that my school district let me work with my caseworker. The 3 prior therapists that my child went to said, she's fine, she doesn't have any problems, we argue daily, I don't know what to do. She doesn't talk, she just does her things. When I finally went to the caseworker, she's opening up, she's communicating. She talks to me about her feelings, but she also talks to the caseworker and is finding, because she takes her anger out on me. I'm a single parent. I took her in at the age of 47 as a single parent, and I don't have family and support here in the state at all. Not only do I get to talk to you as a perspective as a parent, but as a teacher, we are stretched thin. I am not educated in therapy or counseling to deal with all the issues we have within our classrooms. I have to teach writing, I have to teach reading, I have to teach science, I have to teach social studies on a 5-hour day. We don't have a lot of time to turn around and figure out what is going on in the home, what is going on with their child, and where's the problem coming from. So I have 2 different perspectives, not only as a parent, but as a teacher. And the caseworkers that are working within our schools are also getting, I feel, a bigger picture, because they get to talk to the teacher, they get to talk to the parents, they get to see how the kids behave within the school. So they get to see firsthand what is happening to this child, what is triggering them, where do they need to go with them. I don't have that opportunity when I have anywhere from 20 to 30 kids in our classrooms, especially with the cuts that we're having as far as teachers as well. They provide so much. I can go to my caseworker not only for my own child, but for the students within my classroom to get ideas of saying, okay, you're doing therapies with this student, what can I transition into my classroom that will work to get him a better education? To be able to communicate better on their level, to understand how their mind works, because we don't know how to figure that out. I don't have the time to sit with my children in my classroom on a daily basis and figure out what triggers them all the time. I get a picture, a snippet, but they get to talk to the parents, the teachers, the view, so they can actually give us strategies that will work, not with only in the classroom, but at home. I talk to the social worker about my child at home and what can we do and how we can get along and better help our child as a whole. So they're helping us not only with students as a whole, but our children as a whole. Thanks for letting me have the time.
Thank you. Thank you everyone who spoke this evening, who showed up, and for your advocacy, and for your participation in our process. We do have to move on to the next portion of our agenda, which is our reports agenda. The first item that we have there is item number 1, construction update. B.A. Kearsley, do you wanted to introduce this evening, or just anticipating Isaac coming up?
Yeah, we'll just have Isaac give us the update.
Good evening, board members. While I'm hooking this up, I would like to take a minute, and tonight on the consent agenda, you guys approved several things, and I just want to recognize a few parties that have been involved in getting that done. First of all, the Salt Lake City Public Utilities Department. We've had our arguments, but we have a great relationship with them, and we appreciate them. Laura Briefer and her team, Christine Bytel, We're still working through several difficult situations, but we appreciate their efforts and their assistance in getting us through these challenges at both sites, the West and Highland High School, with utility easements and other challenges. Also, I'd like to thank the owners of Crown Burger. They've been very receptive and willing to work with us. Again, thank you for your guys' approval tonight. That's been a long, drawn-out process, and it's been a difficult one, but it was one of those things that we had committed to the city to ensure we had an additional exit from our property to mitigate what was coming from Second West. So thank you for those things. Just real quick, before I dive into the report also, I need Sam. Always need Sam.
I think we all do.
User error? No. Okay. It's not a huge deal, but if Sam can get it to work, I just wanted to show you, we are working on a time-lapse system to provide updates that we will link to our website, the school district website, to show progress over time for both of these projects. The cameras were on a delay getting here to get these up, but the first one's up at West High School, so we're really excited. I just wanted to give you a quick look of that. And then also, not to read the report, but Highland High School, we've been making tons of progress. We've gotten all of the payments. I'm sorry, there's the picture of the site. I will just move over a little bit so you can see in the bottom, on the bottom or the far left side of it, that yellow area over there. That's actually a temporary area where they're going to be pouring all of the concrete walls. They'll pour those, stand them up as we go. So that's the manufacturing area for those on site, which will save us quite a bit of money doing it on site. But this is the view that hopefully we'll be able to build over time, that it'll just get a couple seconds longer each day so you can see what's going on there. Sorry, it's not taking that off. Highland High School, we are progressing. Again, to thank some people is the Sugar House Park Authority, the county, and the city for their efforts in helping us there. There's a lot of things there that you move one thing and three other things fall in the way, or you find something else underneath. But we're working through that. We had talked about the Highland High baseball field that the contractor felt we had an opportunity to, if we could get in there really quick, we'd be able to finish that and not have to invest at another facility to have a practice facility for them. But as we went further down that road, the south side of the baseball field is actually in a riparian zone of the creek that comes, or the river that comes through, and that set up several other difficulties. So we're actually having to move some of our drill wells for the ground source heat pumps. We're actually going to reduce by about 40 holes, and then the other 200 plus holes, we're going to go another 100 feet deep to make up for the loss of those 40. But that's to ensure that we move out of that riparian zone that the county identified for us. So a lot of moving parts, a lot of fun things happening. I've officially lost all my hair. I'm just kidding. Some of the other projects I mentioned, we've put out to bid, and we're doing our best to try and figure out how we can deal with those now with some budget constraints. We try to be pretty generous in our assessment of what we think something's going to cost, so we don't ever have to come back and say, oh, we don't have enough money for this. But both the Wasatch Tunnel and the Bryant projects that we had planned for this year came in significantly higher than what we expected. I've talked with Alan, and we'll be coming up with some options there to complete one of them this year, and then try and absorb the other one into next year's budget. to ensure that the schools get what we've told them we're trying to get them. But that's the reality of these costs that are coming in. And unfortunately, both of these have to do with concrete and construction, which continually go up. Mr. Torres talked about Roslyn Heights. We've secured the contractor to do the plantings that we had looked at doing, and also increasing the irrigation around those to absorb, to help water those plants that are going in there. Also an update that we've been working with the contractor who built the facility to increase the height of the netting on the north side. It's been adjusted to 25 feet high. Unfortunately, we have to drill deeper because the post and the foundation that's there for the existing one that is 15 feet high, it's going to be 10 feet higher and set back about 6 feet from the existing fence or netting line on the north side. And then we're also extending that so it will go all the way to the west corner on an angle to ensure that we don't have anything going in that other corner, the northwest corner. And then we're also waiting on the metal for the bollards that were supposed to be installed originally to keep people from driving up onto the sidewalks. And it's designed that it'll have a chain around it. The intent was to allow teams and activities to have an area where they can either have a caterer or a food truck of some sort to be right next to the tennis courts for their activities, their team activities. So there will be a chain there that can be open to allow those vendor opportunities there for the event. But then there will only be 2 ADA access points for people to walk through. You won't be able to get utility vehicles and cars through there anymore. As far as the others, everything else is self-explanatory. If you guys have any questions or comments.
So Ryan and then Amanda and then Ashley.
So Isaac, I just wanted to follow up on that Roslyn Heights and make sure that I understand. So you're telling us that the nets, that's still a work in progress?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And
we put up temporary where the major concern was happening, which is basically the blue line to the blue line of the soccer field, until we could get the contractor to come back and put these in. When they initially assessed it, they said, we think we could do it, but then the architects reviewed and said, no, the pillars aren't deep enough to support a 26-foot pole for 25-foot netting to be connected to it. So then they had to redo that and send that back to the contractor to get pricing. And now we're just waiting on the netting manufacturer to give us a final price on the length of, I want to say it's 425 feet or 440 feet, something like that, that'll cover that area.
so we're still going to complete that?
Yes.
Get that netting in. And right now there's, I guess, interim sort of netting, is that?
Just a temporary that we put up on top of the existing, but it's only a short section between the blue lines that are just exterior of the goal on the soccer field.
I mean, when I'm hearing that they're like lacrosse balls, and I mean, those things are, well, in some ways lethal, flying over. This would be able to handle those when we get it all taken care of?
Yes.
Okay.
But I was out there last week and there was a tennis activity going on and there were kids hitting tennis balls like they were baseballs. So there's an amount of reasonability that we're trying to meet, but you can't plan for every bad behavior is what I'm trying to get at. So the 25 feet is what our architect is saying they believe will cover that, and there's some other challenges there. We have power lines that are very close, and we have to stay at least 12 feet away from those so we don't interact with that. So that's what the architects have recommended for us to utilize there.
Well, I think that explanation's helpful. Just one last question, and that I have heard that like goals are moved around and things like that. Is that happening? Like
The field is set up to have the netting systems for all the goals are temporary, so they can exchange from the soccer field to the lacrosse field.
Okay.
And then there's basically two sets of everything that are there currently.
Okay,
So
but
there's-
the way that it was designed, it's not that the goal is like right next to the neighbor's backyard, or?
The goal to the north is right on the turf line, and then it's 12 feet from the turf to the fence line. And that's the original intent was that a goalpost, about 8 feet high. Then the temporary, or the initial netting that was there was 15 feet high. And that's what they recommended, thinking that was appropriate, but obviously that's not fixing the issues.
Okay.
And so we're working on increasing that by another 10 feet.
Okay.
And the temporary right now is about 24 feet high, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Brian. We have Amanda, Ashley, then Annie.
Okay, so you answered one question in that, when was the 25 feet gonna be done, but you said you're waiting on pricing. Is that pricing including that deeper drill, or do you already have?
Yes.
Okay, so.
Yeah, so originally we were getting pricing for the netting to go from where the temporary netting is, from blue line to blue line. With the additional complaints, we're extending that all the way down to the west corner,
So then.
as close as we can get to the power line.
Hold on a second, I'm just gonna look at something, but I don't have it. So I'm grateful that you're trying to you're extending it the entire north section, because that field, they're doing lacrosse and soccer, and those balls are going a lot of different directions. What are you doing to mitigate what's happening on the west side of it, so the very end of it? Because I believe one of the homeowners live on the west side, and they're experiencing ball issues as well. Soccer is typically confined to those netting areas, however, lacrosse has a mind of its own sometimes, those balls. So if you haven't already, my ask would be, let's look at that west section of that field as well, because I believe there's some issues there. And then I was planning on going over to the field tonight after the board meeting to kind of look at things, but one of the things I'm wondering if it's been assessed is, at least during practices or just people out there doing whatever they're doing, that we are able to move those nets, the soccer nets, not the big permanent ones,
Yeah.
away from the residential homes and moving them to the south end where they're not right next to the homes. So the residences have a little bit of a buffer from the activities and such. So if we could look at potentially doing something like that. Another, I guess, suggestion ask would be having some kind of on-site security routine, because you do have the policies and the protocols, and the gates get locked, and you're doing some mitigation with the chain to prevent vehicles going up on there other than permission. But if there could be some routine security, because of the things that we're hearing coming out of that area when there aren't adults around. And then additionally, another thought would be signs up along all of the fencing that's right next to the homes that basically says, please respect the neighbors, and at least during on-game times, stay away from the residential homes. So it's just kind of that courteous reminder to the players, to the individuals, if you're gonna be there just practicing and whatnot, if you can move to the south side of the field and stay away from that northwest side of the field, then those things could help reduce some of those issues coming out of that site. So just some things to throw around out there. But thank you for all your work. I know it's a lot. So that's it.
Thank you.
Amanda, Ashley.
I think my question is probably best directed to our business administrator. It's that we get these updates, and sometimes things change in between our meetings. And so one thing I've noticed that happened, especially with Highlands baseball, because we all represent our physical boundary, but the people at our boundaries make all manner of choices about where they go to school. And so I'll hear kind of some hubbub about a thing happening at the baseball field, and I'll say, no, in the public meeting we were told this, right? But in the meantime, things have been learned about the property and why it has had to change. So I guess my question for our business administrator is twofold. How can community members expect to hear updates through their school administration or school system so they're not confused about how what we talk about in the public meeting is different than what might be happening? And the second would be, can we make it possible just for the board to receive an informative memo? You know, because I definitely don't need to get in the weeds of a riparian zone and installing geothermal. That's certainly not my area of expertise. But it would be nice to know so that when asked a question, I don't give incorrect information.
Right, so two things. If it's an athletic item, like dealing with the athletic field, the athletic directors are almost always involved in those conversations, so they would have the information. If it's something else with the construction, let's say parking and stuff, the principal will have that information. So they should reach out to those two people. As far as if you've been presented something in a board meeting and then we get into it and it changes, absolutely, we can work on as those changes happen to inform the board that, hey, we said this, but now there's a riparian zone, which maybe I'll have to look up and see what it is.
Water abutting a river. Or land abutting a river.
You sure it's not your expertise?
Yep. Well, yes.
Yeah, so
Pretty sure.
we can commit to say, you know, not every minor change, but if there's a significant change in direction, to send out an email to the board.
That would be really helpful, because we know we've established what the budget is for these projects and the general direction, but we don't have, you know, oversight over exactly where the, you know, geothermal is installed or the date that something will be complete. So just an informative thing, that's really helpful. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks. Ann?
Just a couple questions. So for the Roslyn Heights Sports Complex, do we have any cameras installed at that site?
Yes, I believe there's 8 of them that are
Okay.
installed on site.
And do we have any signage saying that there are cameras?
No, we do not.
Okay. I'm just curious, I think that could be helpful. Amanda mentioned some signage, but as a parent with young boys who throw balls every direction, I'm always like, they're watching, you know, like you don't want to be caught on camera. So I don't know if that could be a deterrent in some way. Also, like if there is a major accident or something, reviewing footage and saying like, who was the adult on the field at that time? Who was the coach? Can we talk to them or whatever, you know? Obviously you don't want to be looking through hours and hours of tape, but if there are certain incidences that are reported, then it's a little bit more feasible to go through. The second question I had was with the Wasatch Tunnel. Does it currently meet safety standards? Is this just a mitigation for future wear and tear, or what's that status?
So that tunnel, we signed a contract in 1944 with the city to take over the ownership of that tunnel. So it's old, it's not unsafe. The challenge is over time the road has changed, and any water that seeps through the road into the ground to the east of that, it's coming down and settling against the wall. So it's not making it unsafe, it's just, it makes the inside of it look really ugly because of the moisture and things that penetrate. We did waterproof it from the exterior, but this next measure is to drill holes and inject on the other side to try and deal with that. The only other option is to dig up South Temple, which, I mean, talk about expensive, right? But that's the only other way that we can access that, and to put up some sort of vapor barrier that they didn't have back in the day. The other challenge is there was electrical installed afterwards, obviously, and there, with this water penetration, one of the conduits rusted out and shorted the system there. So there's a hole right when you walk down the stairs that we haven't been able to dry that out enough to cut out, reseal, and pour new concrete in there. So it's ugly, but it's not unsafe. There's no electrical in there that somebody can reach in and,
Yeah. And does that also include, there's no like mold or radon, I mean, has there been radon testing and mold testing to make sure that there's not like the respiratory?
I know there has been, I don't remember what the actual date was on the last time that was done. We did not do that during this last project because we sandblasted the entire thing and waterproofed the inside.
Okay.
So there wasn't anything on the surface that could be mold.
Yeah, just checking for safety concerns and for parents. So thank you.
Yep.
Are there any other questions for Isaac or Alan? I'll go ahead and go on round one first, Amanda. So first, Alan and Isaac, it might be good to look into, and this is just when Annie mentioned the cameras that we have there. There might be new state legislation that would require us to let the public know that there are cameras. I know in the public institution that I work in here in the city, that was a step that we had to take at all of our service desks to just put a sign out that there are cameras and we're recording, so it might be something to look into. I don't want us to be out of compliance with that. I could be completely wrong, maybe it's a library thing where I work, but it might be something to look into. And I also just want to close the loop on some of Amanda's requests and suggestions. Board, as you know, we don't direct out of the report's agenda, but I just want to make sure that Amanda's suggestions get some follow-up and what that process might look like. I don't know, Alan, if you want to weigh in on that, or if we want to follow up at a later time. So, okay, thank you. Charlotte, do you have something?
Yeah.
Okay,
I guess.
and then Amanda in round two.
I was wondering how, if the Glendale track, it just recently didn't they host some regional track meets for the middle schools there?
So, yes.
And how is it being used?
So the West track team has been using it Monday through Thursday. Some days they're not there, some days they're at the high school working out in the weight rooms. But they've reserved it Monday through Thursday until 6 p.m. or 6:30 p.m. And then the junior high track teams have held 2 meets there. Their final one is this Thursday at Glendale. And then we have been renting that facility partially to some groups that have used it in the past. The Majestic being one of them, the rugby team, or the women's rugby. They've been temporarily doing that. They're really excited for opportunities this summer there, but the bathrooms and the electrical won't be completed until the actual building's done. We had to move the building about 60 feet because of another abandoned easement that we found. But that's all within the budget. There's no changes to you guys or anything on that. But that's stuff we've been dealing with.
So when is the building, do we have any idea when it will be completed?
The end of June.
Oh.
This fiscal year.
Okay.
Thanks, Charlotte. We'll go ahead and move into round two. Amanda?
Just a follow-up to Ashley's question and Alan's response regarding, is my mic on? I feel like
it's on.
Okay. Probably should start wearing my hearing aids. You mentioned that individuals should reach out to athletic directors, that they should know when it's regarding athletics, and the principals regarding other items. We know that sometimes individuals either don't get a response or they get the I don't know. So who would the community go to next, or what would be the next steps if they get a non-response or an I don't know response?
So on the construction website, we have an email address that's, is it construction@slcschools.org? Questions. They can submit questions on that email, and I believe they go to Jason, and then he can forward them off to the applicable person to respond to.
Perfect, thank you for that reminder.
Thanks, Amanda. Any other questions for Isaac or B.A. Kearsley? All right, seeing none. Isaac, thank you so much for all you do. Appreciate it. We'll move on to item number 2 of the report's agenda, which is Budget Development, General Fund, and Special Revenue Fund budgets. B.A. Kearsley?
All right, Sam, if you can make me the presenter. All right, this is the moment everybody always waits for in the board meetings, is the budget presentation. So, up to date, we've done debt, capital projects, we've done school allocations, we've done preliminary property tax rates. Now we're moving into the final phase, which is the general fund, which is the largest fund we have. It's kind of the main funding fund. Again, I want to just say what funds are. They're like buckets. We have specific revenue sources that go into buckets, and then they have to be spent in those buckets. And the general fund is our big kind of the everything else bucket. If it's not required to be reported somewhere else, it's in the general fund bucket. So some budget highlights for next year, 26-27. So these slides are going to be dealing with the next year's budget. Again, as we talked about in a previous meeting, the plan is to adopt the certified tax rate, which again, certified tax rate is the tax rate that generates the same amount of revenue for the district as the prior year. There was a 4.2% increase in the value of the weighted pupil unit. We discussed this a little bit in our last meeting, that even though with that 4.2% increase, due to estimated decrease in enrollment, we still anticipate a net decrease of $643,000 in the minimum school program. Schools will receive an additional $400,000 in their land trust money, and that's been built in the budget to distribute out to schools. In addition, we're getting $1 million of new students at risk funds, add-on funds. Potentially those funds get adjusted based on October 1 count. So depending on what those at-risk factors get reported on October 1, those funds could go up or they could go down. Depending if our reduced counts go up or down. I mean, the higher the at-risk money, at-risk factors, then the more the allocation we'll get. That's kind of what hit us this year, is we had such a decrease in those at-risk factors reported October 1 that our at-risk money actually decreased by $1 million. But the state legislature added statewide $25 million of new money to the at-risk add-ons, and we're anticipating to get about $1 million of that. Addition, we're getting $6.3 million in teacher and student success program funds that had, previous to this year, built in an automatic inflationary increase. Not in this legislative session, but the legislative session in 2025. They removed that so that those will be stagnant dollars going forward, but they are also allocated on an enrollment per student basis, so we can expect to see those funds continue to decrease as our enrollment decreases. We are getting $826,000 of new funds for literacy interventions from Senate Bill 241. Specifically, those are to be used for paraprofessionals and teacher coaching, really directed towards literacy. And we're still having discussions on how to best direct those funds to help meet the goals of literacy. They changed the name to one of their pots of money, the legislature did. So we're getting $7.4 million, and it's now called Teacher and Classroom Salary Support. Previous to this year, that was known as flexible allocation, but I just want to note, previous to the year before, the good chunk of that was known as professional staff cost formula. We used to get $9 million of professional staff cost formula. The legislature changed the allocation again to student enrollment factors. That change alone reduced our allocation of that by $2 million, so now we get the $7 million. And then they ended the professional staff cost formula and rolled it into flexible allocation. And then in 2026, there was a bill passed to change the name of it to Teacher and Classroom Salary Support. The idea there is it might be flexible allocation, when we hit COVID, flexible allocation was the first thing that was cut. It went to zero. So hopefully with a name like Teacher and Classroom Salary Support, it's not such an easy target for future cuts if needed. So our 26-27 budget, the overall budget expenditures exceed the budgeted revenue by $17.6 million before any fund transfers. The deficit will be reduced by carryover allocations and under expenditures. So as we know, schools don't always spend their money, and they carry over $3 to $4 million each year, but we can't plan on that. So the 17.6 is really worst case scenario if schools carried over no money and every budget was spent fully, and that just doesn't happen. So we anticipate that deficit to be somewhat less than 17.6, but since we can't really pinpoint it, we budget, as I said, worst case scenario. So special education budget expenditures exceed state and federal budgeted revenues by $6.5 million. We're covering this deficit with $4 million of minimum school program, and then we'll have to pull another $2.5 million out of the fund balance. And I received a question because this is continuing increasing. So far this year, we have about $1 million less in Medicaid reimbursement funds than we had the year before. Those Medicaid funds are hard to peg because it depends on what qualified services we provide to our students, and then we submit those for reimbursement, and then we get reimbursed from the federal government. So there's still hope that we get more in by the end of the year, but we're nearing the end of the year with that, and down $1 million year over year. So that's part of that increase there. And again, special education is budgeted as fully staffed, and as we know, they don't always have their staff for the full 9 months, because sometimes there's vacancies that don't get filled at the beginning of the year or people leave. So the actual deficit will be somewhat less than that, but again, this is a significant issue. And I put this in here just to really point out how underfunded special education is from both the state and the federal government. So some more highlights. We built into the budget step lane and COLA increases, a 5% increase to health and accident insurance premiums, and then that gets split half and half between the district and employees. In addition, we've budgeted $2 million for unfunded state security mandates. That's another thing that's putting a lot of pressure on our budget, is these requirements we have to meet this new security rules, and there's no funding attached to that, so we're having to come up with that money somehow. Fund balance is required by state law. It gets budgeted at 0, but we still have our fund balance reserve that's committed to economic stabilization, and that's set at 5%, which is the maximum allowed by law. So that's still there. Before we get into the budget, I just want to kind of cover, we talk a lot about functions. So we report our expenditures in function. Function means, what was this expenditure used for? Our biggest function is instruction. That involves things that happen in the classroom, instructing children. And then we have several support services. We have support services for students, instructional staff. We have district administration, school administration, central services, operation and maintenance, that's custodial, utilities, transportation, child nutrition, community services, and debt service. So I have these definitions in here, so as we go to the next slide, you can kind of picture what type of expenditures are we talking about. So again, these are pretty small. It's here for reference. We're not going to spend a lot of time on these numbers just because they're hard to read. But there in that final column is our 26-27 budget with estimated revenues $284 million, estimated expenditures of $302, and there you have that $17.6 million deficit, which will be covered by fund balance. We continue to deplete our fund balance, so we need to really look at things to stop the flow of fund balance so we can get back to where we're not spending that down so much. This slide just shows, so again, we start the first column with our budget and then just projections going forward. There's not a lot of science put into the projections. Just put, what kind of percentages increases have we seen over the years and just apply that over the next couple of years. And it just reiterates that we do have I don't know if you call it a revenue problem or expenditure problem or both, but those are things that we're going to have to really take a hard look at and figure out how to correct for those. Graphically, here's a chart. You can see back in 22-23, the blue line being revenue was exceeding expenditures. But there, between 23 and 24-25, that trend line has swapped, and now we're spending more than we're bringing in. And you see that gray line at the bottom is our fund balance. We had a fund balance, a high in the 22-23 of 96.3 million, projected at 26-27 to go down to $45.2 million. So at that rate, we don't have very many years until we have we don't have a fund balance to cover these over expenditures. So those will be conversations we'll continue to have with both district leadership, finance committee, and the full board. Here's a pie chart showing those expenditures by functions. Again, if you remember the previous slide that had the definition of functions, you can see 52.8% of our expenditures go into instruction. And then we have support services for students, 6.3%. So that's going to be your school nurses, your school counselors, your social workers, your people that work with the children that aren't necessarily classroom functions. So coaches are in the next one over, support services for instructional staff. Those are academic coaches, and expenditures where we do PD and we pay teachers extra to attend that PD. That goes into that bucket. And you see several other, our next biggest one is the operations and maintenance of school buildings at 11.5%. So that includes custodial, utility payments, maintenance, etc. And you see those other slivers are pretty small. So when we look at how do you balance a budget, and it's the easy target to say, well, the district office. And I don't want to disagree that we need to look everywhere when we're looking at these, but some of those slivers are pretty small, so cutting them doesn't, again, needed to look at, but it doesn't solve the issues, because that's such a small percentage of our total pie. So on top of functions, we also have a reporting tool that's called objects. So you can see, I don't have a slide definition of the objects, but they're pretty self-explanatory. You see 89.2% of our general fund budget goes to salaries and benefits. So when we're talking budget cuts, we're talking people. It's hard, it's difficult, but that's the makeup of our budget, because those other slivers are pretty small. Now we're going to move in, so that's the end of the general fund. Now we're going to move into special revenue funds. So special revenue funds contain revenue that has to be reported separately. So we can't mingle it. So we have to report that separately so we can track, hey, this money was for, and you'll see for child nutrition. So it's reported as a special revenue fund, so we can see all the money generated by child nutrition stays in child nutrition. So first of all, we are going to talk Child Nutrition Fund. Its purpose is to administer school lunch, breakfast, after-school snacks, and the fresh fruits and vegetables program. It's funded by meal fees and state and federal reimbursements. I've got a spelling error there, but the meal prices. So the meal price increase is not built into this budget, since we built the budget prior to approval. So when we adjust the budget, we'll adjust for those price increases. And here's the numbers showing that deficit. They're kind of in the middle of the page. Current year, anticipating about a $1.5 million deficit, which grows to $2 million next year. The price increase isn't going to solve that budget. As Kelly Orton, Director of Child Nutrition, mentioned, a lot of this has to do with talking with the people at the federal government that their reimbursement rates are not keeping up with the expenditures. So we can always hope that they look at that and increase it appropriately. There you see for all the years on this chart that expenditures have exceeded revenues in the Child Nutrition Fund. And they have a mix. So the bulk of theirs also is salary and benefits, but then you have the cost of food sold is another large chunk of this fund. Moving into Student Activities Fund. This fund accounts for receipts and disbursements of monies for student activities and organizations at the individual schools. Revenue sources consist of student fees or fee replacement monies. As you remember, we don't charge anymore for curricular and co-curricular fees, but the district puts in money to offset those fees at the school level, and we transfer that money over into this fund. They do fundraisers, gates, receipts, and donations also reported in this fund. This fund's a little harder to budget for because you don't know how many fundraisers are the kids gonna do, or how, if a team that's doing well probably gets more people to pay and buy tickets so their gate receipts go up. So we just do an average estimate because the goal here is to make sure that whatever we set for our expenditure budget doesn't get exceeded. Because again, it's one of those, if they have more expenditures, it's probably because they did more fundraisers to cover those. So there's a correlation there between revenue and expenditure. You can see expenditures at the top, revenue. So again, these funds carry over, so as schools don't spend all their money, it's available for them to spend the next year. There you can see in that revenue, you see that blue line trending down, and at the bottom you see that orange line trending up. That's the fee replacement money, so you see the fees they've been getting in curricular and co-curricular is decreased, but that's being replaced by that orange line, which is a transfer from the general fund into this into the special revenue fund to account for those lost fees. I just want to note, so current year we did receive $500,000 from the legislature to replace those fees. They were kind enough, as you may have seen in the email that was sent out, to let us keep the money that they already gave us, because there was legislation to take it back even though we had already received it. The initial bill was then going to give us $300,000 next year and $200,000 the year after that. That money is gone. They took that away, so everything from here on out is funded by the district. Again, our pie chart showing what they spend on, and again, they usually spend it on supplies, materials, classroom supplies, going on there. This is where their trips are going to be, their activities, athletic activities. Pass-through taxes fund. The purpose of this fund is to account for property taxes that are levied by the district but remitted directly to other entities. So we have two pieces that are in this fund. One is the incremental tax increment financing projects. So incremental taxes are remitted to the appropriate governmental agency, which could be the Salt Lake CRA, Inland Port Authority, etc. And the amount remitted is determined through an agreement, a mandate, or sometimes a law. This fund also accounts for charter school local replacement funds, which again, the school board levies the taxes, but that gets remitted to the State Board of Education and then gets distributed out to charter schools. Just a quick lesson on what tax increment financing is. You may remember this from last year. So when a project starts, so you see the blue line there at 0 years, a particular area has an assessed valuation. And then the developer or the city or whoever comes and says, look, we want to do this project on this land. It's going to increase the taxable value of this area, therefore increasing the amount of taxes available. But we don't have money to do the infrastructure, or we want to incent some developers to come in and do affordable housing. So the tax increment financing is, look, for a certain amount of years, and in this sample is 23 years, we're going to take that additional tax revenue that comes in due to the higher assessed valuation and use it for the development project. And then when it's done, when the 23 years are over, that gets released back to the taxing entities that levy the tax. And that's the orange section there at the end of this chart. As we budget for this, it's really just what was our current year actual, and we just set that budget for next year. When we get the tax settlement, it's called, which we get in the end of March, which is really, again, property taxes go on a calendar year. So in December, you get all the taxes of that year, and then by 3 months later, we get a reconciliation from the county saying, here's all the taxes we received, and part of that includes, and here's the amount that went out to these other entities. You can see for current year, which is actual, so this is what happened, and when we do our financial statements, you'll see these numbers match. $3 million went out to charter schools, and $37 million went out to other entities as tax increment financing. You see budget and revenue always equals each other on this one, or revenue and expenditure. So where does tax increment money go? I just want to go through this slide. So those first, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 are city. The first 7 are Salt Lake City projects, and then that Woodland Avenue is a Mill Creek project. There's a sliver of the district that resides in Mill Creek. So those are projects that previous boards had agreed on to participate in, and this is the amount of money that is going out. You can see we also added an end date of when those projects are scheduled to end. You can see there in the Granary District that ended in 2025. So in theory, we would then get, that orange piece we showed, that will come to us. The trick with Granary is then most of that is now going to be eaten up in an HTRZ project area. And so I am very interested to watch how this increment works on when they set the new base year, and how, we should get some more, but I don't know that we're going to get the full increment amount from the first one. So I'm going to keep an eye on that. In addition, we have the Utah Inland Port Authority. $14 million is going to that. That was set by the state legislature. And that nice kind of new glass hotel over by the Salt Palace, that's that convention hotel. And I believe that was also a state project, and so $703,000 is going to help fund that hotel. So and there's your $37 million. The next one we're going to cover is Salt Lake Education Foundation Fund. This fund is to account for the financial resources collected and spent by the district's 501c3. Revenues are generated through donations from community members, businesses, and are used to augment resources for the educational, physical, and social needs of students. They bring in, about $2 million, and they spend out about $2 million. So I know the foundation right now has, there's some big projects, some big fundraising projects that they're working on, because we can't anticipate what those might actually be. We have not built estimates of those into the budget. So this is just kind of showing status quo, but as they get more money and we revise the budget throughout the year, we'll revise those revenue expenditure numbers. There's just your trend lines for the Salt Lake Education Foundation. They actually have the most diversified pie of all our funds. They're spending their money on a lot of different things. Next steps, small group meetings. I've sent out some dates. I've heard from a couple of you. If none of those dates work, please reach out, and if you want to meet, we can spend some time going through detailed budget discussions. Happy to adjust to your schedule as needed. And then on May 5th, we'll go over the executive summary. Actually, that's today. So we're just doing the general fund. May 19th, we'll do a final budget review, answer any final questions, so that you can feel confident about voting for the budget on our June 2nd meeting. Now, questions?
It's up Annie, and then Ashley and Brett.
Okay, I have 2 questions. First, I would just like to go back to the pass-through. Can you show those projects again? Just so the public is aware, we've discussed this in public meetings previously, but these are tax monies, usually through property taxes, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, that go, and a lot of people like myself, before joining the board, think, okay, I'm paying my taxes, it's going to the schools, right? But I don't realize that actually, once I pay that, it's really divided out, and a lot of that money is going towards city development and state development projects. So can you explain how the voting works on these projects? Because some of this obviously was voted on by previous boards, so we have no choice in this matter at this point, because we're locked in till the end dates, which are a lot of them are 2040.
Right. So there's quite a history on how this has varied over the years. I'll go back to when, the example we're going to use is the Salt Lake City CRA comes and presents to all the taxing entities in the city, hey, we want to do this project. And they would come and present to this board, and they say, here's what we want to do, here's what we think the benefits for the city are. And initially, and I don't know the exact timelines, but this is since I've worked here, so a while. Initially, if the majority of the taxing entities voted yes, all the taxing entities were participating. It didn't, so we could vote no, and other taxing entities, the majority voted yes, so we're in.
We're just forced in.
We're forced in. That legislation changed so that we could vote no and the others vote yes, and then we're not participating. Now, as far as I remember, we haven't been in those situations. Our board has voted yes on the ones that were presented. But what was happening, I'm gonna just go off my soapbox a little bit, is taxing entities like school districts were voting no. So what happened? Legislation was changed to create what's now called HTRZs, which is
Housing and Transit Reinvestment Zone.
and TIFs.
TIF is tax increment financing. You mean FHIZ, Fair Housing
FHIZs.
Investment Zone, and CCRZ, Community Center Reinvestment Zone.
Thank you to our TIF expert.
There's the expert.
You always have an expert in the room. So there's all these new tools that can be used to use tax increment financing to pay for development. What happens on I'm going to use the HTRZ as the example. There, by statute, lists how an HTRZ committee is made up of. It's made up of representatives from some of the taxing entities, representatives from the state legislature, representatives from the tax commission, and these projects get presented to this committee, and then there's a vote. The Salt Lake School District gets 2 votes out of, I believe there's 13 total members on the committee. It's in that realm. And then this goes back to the original CRA plan. We can vote no, but if the majority vote yes, our tax increment is still going into the project.
We're forced in again.
Yes. So in short, that's kind of the history of how this works.
Thank you. My second question is regarding the general fund expenditures. I emailed you a question, and I'm not sure if you are able to pull this up, but I asked if you could possibly explain our general fund expenditures with comparable districts. So that includes instruction, support services, instructional staff. And you sent me a little spreadsheet. I don't know if you're able to pull that up. No.
I'll lose this presentation, I'm afraid, but what she's talking about is in our financial statements and other districts that prepare full financial statements list. So remember we talked about those functions. So they break down what is our expenditure by function by student enrollment, and it breaks that down. I think I've shared it with the finance committee at one point. Maybe not this year, but maybe before Bryce was on the finance committee. Happy to share that out again and then we can also, since we have technically 2 more discussions, we have 1 more discussion next board meeting, and then we can still have continued discussions on our first June meeting when this is up for vote. We can I can be prepared to present that.
Okay, I'll just forward it to the board, and then I'll ask my question so that the board can pull it up. So in the second round, I'll ask the question.
Ashley and then Brian.
Yeah, again, I would reiterate the thanks that you've addressed tax increment financing every year and added it into this presentation. I do want to be really frank, we would have relatively few budget problems if we were able to retain our property tax increment. It's really difficult that we hear so much advocacy in the public comment period, and then the public sort of departs when we talk about the budget and the reason why some of these cuts occur. But if we were not losing $36 million a year to development and growing, we'd really not be talking about cutting social workers or raising the price of school lunch or many of the other unpopular decisions that are coming to the board. And the loss of our property tax to the CRA is without a doubt the largest contributor to our budget issues. If people do have concerns, like in the public comment period, with those cuts coming down the line, I would always encourage them to also reach out to state lawmakers about the impact of this statutory practice. It's reduced our revenue by the equivalent of 10%. So as we're looking at the decline, this is one very large contributor to our issues. But I also want to talk a little bit about that special education deficit jump. So last year we were told the deficit was 4 million and this is 6.5 million. It's my understanding from your presentation, the biggest factor there is a decrease in Medicaid reimbursement rates. And I want to add that this is frustrating given the actions of our state association leadership to reduce Medicaid advocacy at the federal level. But it's also my understanding from you in the presentation that staff expenses may roll back in to cover portions of that deficit. We obviously don't want our classrooms to be understaffed as a funding model, right? We ideally would like them to be fully staffed. So with these responses in mind, what steps do you feel we could take to make our special education spending more stable, acknowledging that the federal and state contribution is not poised to increase?
Right, and I think there's what needs, if we as a board, we have a district accept that this is the scenario, this is the lay of the land, that funding's not gonna come, then as we look at whether it's property tax increase, additional revenue from whatever source, that we commit to put that into special education and then just balance that.
That's really helpful. And speaking of that, in Finance Committee, we did start to talk about some of the outcomes of things like the loss of grants that funded social workers. That happens at the same time, ESSER is fully concluded and past boards did, however controversially, use ESSER money at times to fund personnel. And we knew when that money expired, this was the consequence, basically. And we also knew that funding personnel off of grants, this can be the consequence. So one suggestion that I offered in committee was that because we've concluded a few positions, like the community education coordinators and family school collaboration specialists, I'm curious about the option, and obviously we don't direct in this meeting, so I'm just sharing it with the group, to cut and reallocate those things to social workers. That if we said we have approximately 5 FTE in that pot, is that one thing that could be transferred to social workers? And I think I would share there are 2 schools of thought on this in light of the budget presentation. The first is that the deficit is so large and growing that all the money should be placed and rolled into the larger deficit to fill the hole and address any long-term expense. And another would be to deliberately make decisions to cut and reallocate portions of that ongoing money to things we've identified as a clear priority, and then roll off positions that are no longer needed in total. And I think not just for social workers, but I would like, with that as an example, to take a more line by line or bucket by bucket approach as you're navigating a very complicated budget season, and we want to be confident about the budget we approve. We know a district with reduced social workers will cause harm, but we also know that, if you do a little back of the envelope math on that line going down, in 5 more years, if we keep spending at this pace, the district is bankrupt, basically, right? And so we have to stop spending at that pace. So we have to be cautious, but the best balance in my view, because a bankrupted district is just as harmful, if not more harmful, than a district with reduced social workers. Do we go smaller bucket by bucket and line by line about what can be reallocated to those critical needs, like social work, without neglecting our responsibility to growing the deficit? So with the timeline you presented, what do you think is the best option for some decisions like that? Like going through clear reductions and choosing to reallocate as a board?
Yeah, some of the trick is how to go about prioritizing. Because I would suspect with 7 board members, we might have 7 different lists of what's top priority and what's second, what's third. So how do we have those discussions so that all voices are heard, and also, the discussion within the district, so that we can come up with our long-term plan of how do we both get out of the deficit spending plus protect those things that are important to our students. So I think Finance Committee is a great place to do that, but that involves only 3 board members. So I am open to suggestions on how to continue this conversation. This isn't just a once-a-year budget conversation. We need, because if we wait till next year to have this, I'm going to be back here presenting the same thing with a worse trend line. So we continue to have these conversations as positions turn over. Here in the district office, we review every single one and says, can we do without this position? And if we didn't refill it, what are the trade-offs? Because there's always going to be trade-offs. Nobody's sitting around doing nothing. But so as we reduce people, we're gonna reduce a service, but what are the services that are non-negotiable? And what are those that like, all right, that's great, nice to have, but we can do away with that service to protect those higher need services?
My timer went off, but may I respond just with one suggestion?
Please.
I would say that I think one suggestion, as you point out, the finance committee is only 3 people. I think it would be helpful if members of the board let finance committee members know like their top 5 staffing priorities, and we're able to share that with us to talk about in our next meeting as kind of the initial buckets that we go through. And maybe specifically if social workers is in your top 5, because if it's not, we don't have to continue that conversation. But if it is, that one seems like, kind of critical to discuss now, and others could be the next
And I
that we
can
talk
send
about.
out
That's just
so-
one suggestion.
Yeah, so we've actually added, during this budget cycle, we've added finance committee meetings every month. We usually only have 5 a year, but we've added one every month, so we have one the end of May. So I will send out maybe this reminder tomorrow of this discussion, so we can have that stuff prepped and ready for our May finance committee meeting.
Thank you, Ashley. I've got Brian and then Bryce, and then Amanda.
As a follow-up to Ashley, I guess one of the things that I was wondering about, because the finance committee is only 3 board members, I wondered, is this something that would be like appropriate for a study session? I know that we can't, the social worker thing, we need to address that.
Yeah, I think some preliminary work with finance committee, or, if you have some individual things you want to talk about, please come in and let's talk about them, and do some preliminary work and schedule it for a study session.
To me, that seems like that would be a helpful approach for the whole board to be able to have a conversation about this. The second comment that I had, I don't know if you can go back to that slide where it shows the general fund going down. Ashley referred to that as well, but when I am looking at it, I want to make sure that yes, okay, so when you look over at like 2022-23, 20, that's when the general fund's above.
Right.
Okay, and it continues on for a little while. Is that when we were getting a whole bunch of COVID funding?
I think you'll see where those lines cross is basically when the COVID money went away.
Okay. That's what I was hypothesizing, I guess I could say. So I guess the reason that I bring this up, it's maybe in a way it's echoing what Ashley is saying, that if we continue on like this, we're going to run out of money. And what I am thinking is, in a way, we got to kind of push that off. We were able to not make some challenging decisions because we were getting this funding. And what I'm suggesting is, we're not going to be able to do that anymore. We're not going to have that cushion that's in there. So to me, that's just another piece of, this is stuff we've really got to grapple with. And then the third comment was, okay, you're talking about the state safety mandates. I want to make sure that I'm understanding, when we're talking about those state safety mandates, we're talking about like the individuals that need to be in the schools. Okay.
Right. So the only mandates we've budgeted for so far are the Armed Guardian mandates.
Okay, so the money that we're seeing is being used for that and for ammunition. Is that correct?
Correct.
But there are other mandates that are out there as
Most of the other mandates are capital mandates.
Okay.
We have not budgeted for them yet. Some of the mandates are in our rebuilds, in our high school rebuilds, are being built into those projects.
And, all of that in the new buildings.
Right.
But aren't there mandates also for the schools that are out there not being rebuilt? That, we're going to have to figure out that as well.
That's correct.
Okay.
Thanks, Brian. I have Bryce, Amanda, and Charlotte.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to what the suggestion that Board Member Anderson gave about asking the various board members maybe what their top 3 or 5 or whatever priorities are. Of course, those will very likely differ. I also think we should be doing our due diligence and asking our employees what their priorities would be as well, and contributing that to the conversation.
Thanks, Bryce. Amanda?
Kind of a re-emphasis of what's already been stated, but basically I was going to comment on, ensuring that we are realizing the money that we should not be spending when we have individuals on special assignment retiring. And we do have one, we've received an announcement on that position was a special assignment, so that should free up that money allocation there. And looking at other ways, and then just, I don't think we can talk about it enough, but re-emphasizing how $37 million of property taxes that we should be receiving is being diverted elsewhere. And in the meantime, as you pointed out, our accumulative excess of our budget is about $17.5 million. So we would have had, a good $20 million to be able to do these things that people are desperately asking us for, which would be lovely. In regard to questions on how to look at this, whether it's a study session or, again, a board retreat topic. So it's another avenue that we could dissect and really kind of go into. And then an emphasis to the community that, I think it's been stated many different ways that the excess monies are being eaten up. And so it also reflects back to with our declining enrollment and our need to go through another round of school closures so we can consolidate what we're expending and decrease our expenditures. So that's coming, it's necessary. And then another underfunded mandate that wasn't mentioned was, let's see, I think SB 241, basically the 3rd grade retention bill. There's money that was allocated towards it for literacy, but if a child's not, correct me if I'm wrong, reading proficient by 3rd grade, then with very few exceptions, we're expected to hold these children back and so penalize the student for a bill that is not properly funded. So we are gearing up to try to help as many students as possible to succeed, but on a funding mechanism that's really insufficient for the ask and the pressure being put on for these student populations. So there's a lot going on here. So I just wanted to kind of emphasize those points in addition to what you guys had already spoken about. And yeah, that's it.
Thanks, Amanda. Charlotte?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Bryce said, asking that I think it would be a good idea to ask not only our board but our employees and maybe parents too. We could have a listening. I'm just thinking of some of the community engagement events that. What district was it? Durango. It was in Durango, I believe. Anyway, they had board members, people talking in the middle of the room, and board members were listening on the outside, and people were voting with with stickers and on paper. And so when we're prioritizing what's most important for our students, I think we need to cast a wider net and to hear from everybody.
Thank you, Charlotte. Annie, I'm going to take my time in the first round, and I just want to kind of dovetail back to Board Member Anderson's suggestion about reaching out to the Finance Committee with some priorities. I love that suggestion. I think we could totally do that. But I'd also encourage us to be mindful of our strategic plan. We have pillar update 3 this evening, and we often have pillar updates throughout the course of any given year. And I know previous boards and folks who are on this current board, we've often talked about how do we connect our budget to the priorities and goals that we have laid out in our strategic plan. And I would also like us as a board, as a finance committee, as a community, to be mindful of that as well as we continue to think about these budget struggles, realities that we have in front of us, because I also don't want to lose sight of those goals and priorities. I know some of those goals and priorities certainly have staffing and employee connections, right, that we have to fund in order to meet those goals. So if the finance committee is open to it, I would love to see that kind of connectivity as well moving forward. We'll move into the second round. Annie, if you're ready.
Yeah, I would echo community engagement. I think that's a great point. I just forwarded the email that Alan had sent out. I had asked him for comparable spending per pupil from neighboring districts, so I forwarded that to you. Just for informational purposes, we're the highest, comparing Salt Lake, Granite, Canyons, Jordan, Davis, Alpine, Washington, Nebo. We're highest per pupil spending at $1,554 in fiscal year 2025, and the others are 12,000 or lower. So we spend a lot more on instruction, which I actually think is great. We are paying our teachers, and we're trying to attract the best educators in the state. So great, and we have small class sizes. So I think that's great. There are a couple buckets that I think we need to look at, including instructional staff. We are
as support services for instructional staff.
Yes, support services, instructional staff. We're at about $1,500 per student, and the other districts are anywhere between $360 and $988. So we're significantly higher in that regard. And then operations and maintenance are significantly higher. Now, I'm not sure if that's partially because we're rebuilding. We have maybe older buildings than a lot of other districts. But I do think it's worth noting that when we're looking at our budget overall, if we can look at certain areas, specifically those that are not directly student-facing, that are more coaching, administrative type of roles, that we adjust those ratios appropriately rather than cutting essential services to students like social workers that could save lives. That is something that I feel like I've heard from parents and employees, and I know to be true in my own heart and my own life, that we're trying to keep the student-facing roles and maintain that level of academic instruction and support as needed. So I think we can talk about this maybe in a study session or future meetings, and I'm sure the Finance Committee has looked at this, but I do think it's worth noting. I also do want to say I'm not saying that, you know, we have done such a horrible job, like we're spending more. In fact, I am a proponent of spending a lot of money towards education. I mean, I lived in New York previously, so all of this to me seems like reasonable. I'm not necessarily making a major critique of the district. I'm just saying, given our $17 million deficit, it does make sense to adjust office or instructional staff as well, so that we're not only cutting student-facing roles. That's all.
Thank you, Annie. And Alan, since Annie shared that graph with the board during the public meeting as part of the conversation, you can make sure it's attached to the notes in the minutes. Thank you. Ashley and then Amanda.
I just wanted to quickly correct an error that I made. I aspirationally referred to FHIZ as fair housing. I thought that sounded like a good thing. It's actually first home. It's for first-time home buyers, which I knew. I just had a Freudian experience, I guess.
Thank you. Amanda?
I wanted to make note of something I think we covered in our Finance Committee meeting regarding the budget comparisons of other districts. Part of that, it may not be exactly a side-by-side because the way that they allocate their buckets may be different than the way we do. But it still can be a measurement for sure. And then just another piece I can't overemphasize enough, but we're one of the lowest funded states in the nation. Like I think we compete with Idaho and Arizona on who can fund their kids the least and expect large outcomes. And so, you know, we're trying to accomplish great things on a shoestring budget. And I'm always impressed by what we do. It's just between the pass-through where the TIF, we've got $37 million we have to hand off, and then we are like our WPU funding for our students is like at the bottom of the bucket in this nation. It's a sad irony that we deal with. So that's it.
Thanks, Amanda. I will go ahead and take my time as well in the second round. Something that I forgot to mention when I was talking about connecting the budget to the strategic plan. And the pillar review, and what I forgot to mention is, could the pillar reviews, and this is more of a question for Dr. Grant, Alan, and Dr. Ruiz, could these pillar reviews have some type of analysis around employee allocations and budget and what they might need or anticipate needing in order to meet the goals that they have? I know a lot of that's kind of embedded in there, but making it a little more pronounced. I think in the presentations to the board in the public meeting could be a benefit as we grapple with these things moving forward. I know it's a suggestion. Can't direct in the report, but I just wanted to throw that out there as an option. Any other comments or questions for Alan in this portion of our agenda right now? Go for it, Alan. You have your chart. There's your direction that we can't get. But please do your part. Thank you. We'll move on to our third and final item on our reports agenda, which is Strategic Plan Pillar 3 Review. Dr. Grant and Dr. Ruiz, please introduce.
Yep, Associate Superintendent Ruiz is directing this one, but there's a whole team of people who are reporting on the different objectives in the pillar. Thank you for being here.
Come up.
To add to the conversations.
So tonight we're reporting on Pillar 3 of the Strategic Plan for Student Achievement. And we have Dr. Bree Conley. We also have Dr. Christine Marriott, Mr. James Japius, and Mrs. Yandari Chadwin. Is that presentation coming up? Okay. So Pillar 3 is about family engagement, community partnership, and building trust with our community. So each of the members of our team will report on a particular objective, but I want to mention that, let's see, go to the next slide. And one more. Okay, thank you. I want to mention that all three objectives are really built into what we consider the 5 essentials for family, school, and community collaboration, which are connecting family partnerships to student learning, first and foremost. Partner with families in decision-making, create welcoming and inclusive schools, communicate effectively and develop relationships, as well as engage the community at large. So you'll see these objectives and all the work that's been done thus far, part of these 5 essentials that I just mentioned. So I'll have Dr. Bree Conley and Dr. Christine Marriott start with objective 1.
Next up, please. Sure. All right, so our first objective.
Bree, you'll have to grab that microphone.
I shall. Good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me now? Yeah. Great. All right, so our first objective under the Family Partnership and Engagement in Education is that parents are going to experience meaningful school interactions and increased involvement as a result of improved family and school partnerships. And our goals by 2029 is to have more parent participation, more parent volunteers in our schools, and more consistent attendance at parent-teacher conferences. Next slide, Sam. So to report on the progress that we have made thus far, we are looking at volunteer hours in our schools and how many new volunteers we have. Originally, one of our indicators was to measure how many of our parents are assisting PTA meetings. However, we got some feedback from the PTA, Salt Lake City Council, PTA, Jamie Spencer, in collaboration with PTA presidents across our schools, who said not all families participate in PTA meetings, but we could get a better idea of how they are connecting with our schools through volunteer hours. So that's what we have included in the memo for you. So what we notice is that some of our schools are missing data. That doesn't mean that we don't have volunteers coming to our schools. That just means that we need to tighten up our check-in process with our families. So when they come into the school office, they just need to check in, say, here, I'm here to volunteer, and then check out when they are done doing that. So what we're going to do next is that we're going to improve that process on how our schools track volunteers, check in and check out, so that we have accurate data and know what to do next. Just to preface this is our baseline year of how are we doing in our schools with volunteering. The next thing that we are measuring is how often and how many of our families are participating in parent-teacher conferences, better known in our district as SEPs, Student Education Plans, and this is across all schools. What we notice is that elementary participation of parent-teacher conferences is higher than secondary, but it does drop in the spring for everyone except for 10 schools. I made a typo there, I said 9. It's actually 10 elementary schools that have maintained consistent participation in parent-teacher conferences. And we're trying to learn from those schools, what are those strategies that they put in place for the springtime to maintain that participation with their community. Even though the SCP attendance is lower in our secondary schools, that does not mean that families are not engaging with their child's academic progress. They're doing it through the CCRs, or the career and college readiness plans that counselors set up with them. So we are collecting that data as well, but counselors have until the end of the year to submit that information, so we don't have all the data collected just yet. Our hope is to explore how we can connect CCR to our SEPs for secondary to have some alignment there and make the most out of the time that families spend attending those 2 events. And then we have school events. So we asked all of our schools to give us 3 events that they wanted to, I feel like there's some, yes. 3 events that they wanted to take attendance on, just to see parent participation. And in the memo, I have included a series of events, and we have put them by types. So we have literacy nights, for example, that could fall under learning and enrichment, and then we have family and community connection, which could be back to school night, things like that, and then arts and cultural celebrations, which are pretty big in a lot of our schools, if not in all of them. I did not include athletic events, even though those are very well participated, but it's really hard to gather how many families are actually attending those. So what we're doing next is improving how we capture participation in the secondary schools because of their big size, and then grow high quality family engagement offerings aligned to school event attendance. So we want to maximize our multicultural nights and also include a little piece of perhaps literacy into that as well, so that families can have both aspects of this. And then the last piece of this is the parent involvement overall. So we're gathering that baseline data, as I said earlier, and we're working with our Salt Lake PTA Council to support PTA growth and support our schools that don't currently have a PTA or have inactive PTAs to grow that and to have that as another support in their schools so that families can participate more.
Okay, next slide.
Are we asking questions in between each of these objectives, or clear at the end?
Usually at the end, but the board can,
There's a lot of
stuff.
A lot of stuff. I think it would be prudent to hit it before we move on to the next topic.
I think in the interest of time, we'd probably have to keep our first and second round where it's at for the most part, but if the board's comfortable kind of setting aside that norm, I think we could totally do that. What do folks think? You've done it before. Keep it brief?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amanda.
my only comment is on the last slide that you did where you were talking about support the PTA involvement. And you may be using this kind of broadly in term, but there's a lot of schools that have converted to PTOs. So I would just stress that as you're looking at that measurement, you would include the language of PTA and PTO, because then you're excluding inadvertently that organization, even though it's intended to include it. So just a comment. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, ma'am.
Okay. Oh, one more, go ahead.
If we're going to do it that way, then I did have one quick question, and that was when you were talking about the volunteer keeping track of how much service they're providing. To me, that seems like that should be tied to the safety aspect, because I'm thinking about when I was teaching in the schools, those volunteers needed to be checking in, they needed to be checking out, just to ensure that we knew who was in the building. So to me, it seems like it could be tied that way as well.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Brian. Charlotte?
And then I'm just wondering if you are also including the school community council, members.
That's what she's gonna.
Oh, that's what you're doing, okay.
Thanks, Charlotte. Chrissy?
Perfect segue, thank you. So my part of this is to talk a little bit about what we have been working on to improve the quality of parent engagement, specifically in school community councils or SCCs. Not just this year, but going back the previous year as well. And for the most part, it has involved a lot of ongoing training for administrators at the schools. And that has been a little bit organic. It's as we go, we see a need that some aspects aren't working like they should, or that we see an area for growth, so that's what we focus on. So throughout the year, we've focused a lot on those required web page postings. It's an important way to communicate with all of the families. The land trust plan requirements, the rules of order requirements, all of those technical parts of the law that are required. And it's part of SCC. It's also part of how we receive the land trust funding. And you saw in Alan's report how that's one of our only funds that are going up year by year, not going down. So it is really important that we engage with that in a quality way. And I mean, I was a principal for quite a few years, and I will say I wasn't doing everything just right. So it's been really important to have time with principals to help everyone understand the requirements and just get better at it throughout the year. And then in addition, we did a training for SCC members here at the district office on a Saturday. It was, I think the best part about that was the collaboration between our various departments, including Dr. Ruiz and Dr. Conley and communications, DeAndre. It was just a really nice event for parents. And I know our plan going forwards is to do more of that and do it earlier in the year. The very best scenario is when the principals and the SCC chairs and other parents on SCC just work together and find those really most meaningful ways to spend the funds and the most meaningful ways to connect the parents with the administration and the teachers. And so you can see we have, several hundred SCC members. We have 30 or more school administrators all working together on this, and some pretty dense law around what's required. So I would say what we have done this year is everyone's getting a lot better, and we're going to continue that progress going forwards next year. So if you have questions on SCCs and what we're working on, I'm happy to take those.
Amanda?
Just thank you for that work. I attended that. I believe what you were talking about, the training for the SCC members, and it was extremely helpful. And you can see the attendees' gratefulness in that conversation and that communication. So kudos to you for that work to help expand that knowledge to do quality work with the SCC Land Trust money.
Thanks.
Just a quick note on SCCs. I would encourage parents and community members even to be more engaged and aware of what's happening in their SCCs. I think oftentimes we'll get feedback or there are certain needs at schools, and a lot of people don't realize that they have funds, oftentimes $100,000 each year for their school to allocate towards those needs. So I think it's really important that people are engaged and they're creative in their process, and so it's not just year after year the same thing, but actually looking and saying, hey, our school actually needs an additional X, and so we're going to do that. Reviewing the plans is really helpful for us. I do think there's a trend that it's very similar, that there's like an interventionist at every school who's funded every year, but it'd be great to see alternative plans as well.
Brian?
So as a follow-up to this SCC training, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Grant, but I understood that you also have scheduled meetings throughout the year with the SCC chairs. Is that correct?
Yeah, I do. I do a quarterly meeting with that SCC chairs as the superintendent, and it's been a great meeting.
Yeah, and
really
I mean, to
appreciated
me,
their
I think
time.
that that's a valuable piece to include in here, because I have heard from those SCC chairs that that has been a valuable opportunity. And I mean, they can have exchange with you and with each other. I think that's really helpful.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay, well, thank you. Community partnerships, I think now more than ever, after listening to, and I'm glad I stayed for the full budget presentation, community partnerships are so critical. And as I look into this, it says Salt Lake City School District will build and nurture relationships with community partners to elevate the student achievement. The district values and the contributions of community members, leaders, and business partners in supporting student success. Now, by obviously our objective is student and families will be provided with critical resources needed for students to focus on learning. By 2029, we want to have more partnerships, more students using clinics, more family participation, and more health fairs at the CLCs. Now, a lot of these efforts cannot be done without, obviously, I have our community ed program here, a great team. They brought in close to $10 million a year. It's significant, and it's something that we need to talk about. And then we have our community learning centers. When we talk about the number of partnerships that we have, you're looking at, next slide, please. After school program, 36, these are vendors, organizations that come into our district to partner and provide support. And then you have Salt Lake Education Foundation, 91 community learning centers, anywhere from 101 to 116. And when we bring in these partners, they bring in dollars with them. Many of them, really, the return on investment is significant to what we're doing in collaborating with these key partners. That is why it's so important that we gotta nurture them, we gotta protect them, because they do bring a lot of resources. Here's an example of that type of resource, and then I will also talk about a baseline that we've had. Just to look at what we've been able to do at the West High Clinic. You look at 4,140 total clinic visits, 2,500 primary care visits, 1,640 behavioral health visits, 639 sports physicals at no cost to the students, 1,057 patients receive clinic-based primary mental health. And then it goes on and on. But here's the one, I saw a sign a minute ago. It says that 1 in 5 students are thinking about dying by suicide, right? Or committing a suicide. But we've gone from 3 to 6 months, cut it down to 14 days wait period to see support services for our students. That is significant. But you know who had a lot to do with it? You guys. You guys made that decision to put a clinic at West High School. And now we're going to have a clinic at Highland High School. And we hope that as we're having conversations to support the Highland Clinic, we begin understanding what that process is going to be for the next 4 years and how we can really build a systemic and also program and support that can be self-sustained, really, not asking a lot of money from the district, more from our partners. The other area that I want to talk regarding what our baseline, what we've been able to accomplish 25-26 is, you know, we've expanded the use of health-related support services, including on-site clinics, by holding additional health fairs. I don't know if you guys ever been to a Friends for Sight event. You know, we've had multiple. We've actually doubled this year, and that was incredible. At Rose Park, we had a situation where we announced it the week before. By the end of that day when we launched online the appointments, we had over 100 individuals who signed up quickly. So that is something that we're working with our partners, Intermountain Healthcare, Salt Lake County Healthcare Department, community health centers. Ultimately, we want our families to continue to participate. CLCs host these events, but also as we get new staff, our goal has been to increase by 10%. We can't do that. We constantly have to market and educate administrators in the community because people come and go. And that takes a lot of time and effort. I think Dr. Ruiz noticed very quick by going to the CLCs how many people, how many parents we can easily bring into the CLCs in multiple languages. So the return on investment that you've made as a district board has been significant. I think now we just need to work on our goals, and let me just summarize. Well, I wanted to share this one as well before I move on to the next slide. But we've had total 700, with our UTA partner, over 700 UTA trip counts. And as far as our distinct users, the average has been, last year was 3,944, and now it's 4,800. At Glendale, I was, one of our community, Carrie Taddy informed me that this last year there were so many people riding the bus that the UTA had to reevaluate and open up additional times, and also the space where they're even waiting for the buses, because our students, high school students, are having to access that, which is significant. That just didn't happen yesterday. It happened 3 years ago when you decided to fund that project. It was incredible. So as we bring the contract back, just keep that in mind. And then last I want to say is that I think we're making progress towards our goals. I'm glad that I brought my team here, because this is the reason. I think you guys want to see outcomes, and we are all about that. The after-school program does an extensive evaluation of our program. It is tied to our strategic plan. The CLCs, we believe in community schools, but we're also tied to the strategic plan. We want to increase partnerships. We want to expand the student use of health resources, increase family participation, and most importantly, increase CLC-hosted health fairs by 10%. And we know that can't happen, so thank you.
Thanks, James. Real quick, can you just have your team say hi to us from the back?
Absolutely.
I see some of them there, and Carrie. We'll just give a wave. Congratulations. Thank you, James. Yandere? Oh, wait, question. Sorry, forgot. I saw Amanda and then Hannah.
No question, just a huge expression of gratitude for what all of you are accomplishing. It's a phenomenal feat. I don't know if it's a good term, but it's just, you're supplementing just so many great things that are occurring and giving the students and the teachers, the staff, everybody access to things they wouldn't have most likely otherwise. So just huge thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, I'm incredibly grateful for these projects, and I'm super excited about the West Side Clinic. I work for the U of U Health, and I have colleagues who've been integral in that clinic at West, and it's become an attractive place for staff to want to go and serve because they feel like they're really making an impact. So I feel really excited about the upcoming expansion to a Highland Clinic, and I think that we've heard a lot about mental health, and I think that those clinics will continue to serve a crucial role in mental health referrals and all of the needs that students have with health.
Thanks, Annie. Kelly?
All right, thank you. All right, goal 3, public perception and connections. So our goal is to maintain positive relationships with all our stakeholders, students, family, just general community members, elected officials, et cetera, et cetera. And our goal is to elevate the public's trust in us and their perception. Our objective is for families and students to feel more connected to the district and to be more informed about district programs, achievements, recognitions, all the good things. So our 3 goals by 2029 are to increase that trust and measuring by a community trust survey, to increase the number of positive media stories, and to amplify our reach through partnerships. In year 2, here are some of the actions we've completed. I won't go through everything, but a few things of note is we changed our newsletter strategy. So my team spent some lovely meeting time going over our data, looking at social media analytics, website analytics, parent square analytics, and trying to make sure that we're making decisions based on that data. So we noticed that our newsletter open rate, I'll talk about this a little later, but I think it's a good thing that we're doing. That our open rates were actually quite good, especially for the industry that we're in, public ed. But our engagement was really low. And if you've received a district newsletter, which hopefully you have and have looked at, there are a lot of things. It's always so hard to pick what are the things that we're going to share with our families, because there are so many good things that we could be including. So one thing, as we discussed and looked at this data, is, okay, we know our families trust us, they open the email, but then the content is overwhelming. We know a lot of our patrons look at communication on their phones, and so now we're thinking, okay, how are we going to change this format to be easy to access on a device and to capture the ever-shortening attention of people in the digital age, right? So instead of one longer newsletter, we've pivoted to some shorter updates, more quick bites for people, and are hoping that we'll see that engagement rate increase. We had a brand refresh this year. We have continued to inform our community about our bond and construction projects. That one's really important to us. We want to make sure that our community members know that the district is a good steward of those tax dollars and of those bond dollars. We don't take lightly that our Salt Lake community supported the bond in 2024, and we want to make sure we're being transparent and accountable with how those dollars are being spent. We've continued to highlight staff and student recognitions. We've created a community partners comms council that I'll tell you a little more about in a minute. We've had some good engagement with students through some focus groups as we're working on developing the portrait of a graduate, and a few other things. Moving on to some of those analytics I mentioned. So as you may be familiar with, a couple of years ago, we switched our communications platform to Parent Square. This allowed us the opportunity to reach out directly to families, to have two-way communication in the language of choice of the individual parents. And we're happy to report that we have almost 100% contactability rate. That first number, 98.9%, means we have a good email or phone number for at least one adult, one parent or guardian for every student in our school district. That rate is pretty small, and we're working to close that one. As we looked at the analytics further, we saw that 94% of those can receive email and text. So for 94, we have both. That's really great. And as of mid-April, our reach had been over 19,000 messages sent this year. That includes the efforts of our schools, but and the district too. So that, whoa, that sounds, oh my gosh, you're reaching out a lot of times. Just know that that's collectively across the district and our schools. And then I mentioned that one really good feature of Parent Square was this ability to direct message with families in their language of choice. Well, our schools have really taken advantage of that, and that feature has been used more than 724,000 times this year. We are engaging with our families. Our teachers are leveraging this tool to connect with parents and with students, and we hope to see these numbers increase in coming years. We took a sample. There's every email or post that you send out has different analytics, and so we took the March 18th board report. So just so you know, these aren't like overall numbers. These are two samples, and size of two. But we took an email in March, the board report, which we update our community on what happens at board meetings. And then we looked at an email that had slightly higher engagement, which was a caucus night email. Every year we encourage our community to be active in elections, in the voting process here in Utah. As you know, civic engagement is really important in our district, so this is something we do every year. And this is what we saw. We saw that over 22,700 emails were delivered. That's great. We reached, one email reached 17,700 over text, the other one 21,400. So we're reaching a lot of people. We saw that we have over 9,000 adults who have downloaded the app, which is great. That means they proactively took a step to be able to engage with us. Another positive feature of Parent Square is that you actually don't need to have the app to receive our messages. So even if you don't have it, we can still engage with you. And as you look at that open click rate column, you can see that our rates compared to industry average are doing pretty well. We're in the mid-high 40% for open rate, industry average, and this is my best online research looking at other public school data that's available. About 28 to 35% open rate is about the average in public ed, so we're above that. The click-through rate, that means that you open the email and you clicked on the link. 2% is about the industry standard, and we're between 2.6% across this end size of 2. And then we looked at text, and we were realizing that this is a really big opportunity for us. So we have a 2.5% click-through rate on emails, but on text, it's almost 10 times higher. So that's something my team is taking into account in terms of how we communicate with family. Maybe text is a tool that we start using more often. Apologies. And of those 9,000 people who have downloaded the app, that means that 42% of our parents have it. There's a growth opportunity there for sure. So you can look forward to seeing some sign up for Parent Square, download the app signs in a school near you coming this August. Okay, now on our social media reach, before I get into the information on these slides, I want to provide some context. Last year, we had a bond election. It's the first time that Salt Lake has gone out for bond in a couple decades. We wanted to make sure that we were reaching community members in general, not just our families here in the school district, right? This is a citywide thing. And so we worked with a marketing agency. They helped us with some paid social media ads. We had video ads that ran, when folks are watching YouTube or Hulu or Netflix, whatnot. And so I do want to just give that context so you know that comparing to last year's numbers, there was an additional outreach that we don't have this year. This year it's organic only. It's my team of 3. We haven't put money behind any of our posts. So just keep that in the back of your minds. So on Facebook, that number of total views is 1.4 million. It's a lot, but it is a lot lower than last year. It's about a 43% drop. But again, we don't have a fancy agency or money behind those posts, so a reasonable expectation there. We had about 235,000 views. Our watch time, even without that marketing agency, it actually went up 54%. So collectively, as of mid-April, people had spent about 14 days worth of time watching videos on our Facebook page, which, yay, people are watching our videos. Our interactions have gone down, but not as much as you would anticipate given the big difference in the resources last year versus this year. And our followers, it's pretty flat. It hasn't changed too much from when we had that big money, and now we don't. I do want to highlight Instagram. So again, lots of resources last year, a lot fewer this year, and still, we have increased our total views so much. We have reached 23.8% more people this year. Our interactions have tripled this year. Our new followers have gone up by 70%, and our followers are growing. What we've seen is steady growth. It's slower this year, but it's steady and it's moving in a positive direction. So Instagram also presents a really big opportunity for us. So if you're not on Instagram following us at SLC Schools, encourage your friends to follow 2 friends. I mentioned earlier that we want to increase the positive stories that we're putting out about our school district and what's happening in our schools. We took our baseline last year where we had across the school year 82 positive media stories. And as of April 24th, we were at 73 positive stories for this school year. So we are on track to exceed last year's number. We still have some time left in the school year, and we've had some media since April 24th. So looking forward to sharing that final number for the year when we have that. I also want to add that there are often times when we pitch a story, but then we don't find the link for it. So some stories will maybe air during the live newscast, but there might not be a link for it afterwards. These are just the stories we have links for, so it's not a full picture of what our efforts have been. So know that there are more positive stories that have been broadcast live that we just might not have a link for. On our website, we're also trying to focus on the data to make sure that it's serving the community in the best way possible. So here's a snapshot of a 4-week period between March 23rd and April 19th. Over that 4-week period, we had 48,000 individual active users. So 48,000 different people came to the site. 18,000 of those people were new and had never come to the district website before. Now, we've worked closely with our IT team and Sam Quantz and his folks to make sure that this data is as helpful as possible to us. So what they've done is filtered out when employees log in or when a student opens their district-issued device, and the first page is slcschools.org. So this does not include me opening my laptop for the day, or a teacher starting up their device, or a student logging in the morning. This does not take that into account. We noticed that 32,000, so about 2/3 of those visitors in that 4-week period, typed our URL directly. So they know it, they were looking for something, they knew what the link was, they're loyal users, and 14,000 people got to us through just an organic Google search, whether they were looking for a school near them or they're moving to the area and just kind of scoping things out. Google got 14,000 people to us. We also noticed trends that make sense, like the peak usage is during the school day with over 6,000 users, and average engagement of 90 seconds on the site. I mentioned earlier that we created a Salt Lake City Community Partners Comms Council. That is a mouthful, but we wanted to make sure to really capture what this group is. We launched in the fall, and it's a partnership with different community organizations. It's just a handful right now. It might grow, but we wanted to start with a manageable number, really get this right. And the goal is to extend our messaging reach beyond the district's audience. So that's one goal. The other goal that we have is to look for feedback and to work together with these partners so we can better serve the families that all of us are working to serve. It's also been interesting to hear from these partners some of the things that they're hearing on the ground. They hear and interact in a different way with families than we do, and so there are things that they're seeing on a daily basis that maybe aren't being shared at the school level, and being aware of some of those issues that our community might be facing that wouldn't come to us naturally has been really helpful. And we're hopeful that this will lead to more messaging opportunities and more accessible communications for families across our city. Really, we just want people to be more aware of the opportunities that the district has for their students, as well as the resources that we offer, whether it's the district, the foundation, or through one of our partners. Progress and next steps. Okay, so last year when we came to present, there were some questions about the baseline and how that was established. So we are taking a new baseline this year. Survey questions for specifically measuring for the strategic plan were added to the parent survey for this year. So I don't have that data quite yet, the year's not over yet, and I know that the assessment team will analyze that data and we will be able to share that at some point, but I don't have it today. But we will have a good baseline, and those questions will repeat every year on that survey so we can compare from year to year, and we'll also be able to compare in 2029. Our next step is to create the student survey. Obviously, following state guidelines, things have to be ready for parents to view at registration. So we're working with Dr. Jeffrey's team to make sure that those questions are included and to be able to repeat those surveys annually. I mentioned we've increased our positive media stories and have expanded our reach through that Partners Comms Council. Our Facebook organic reach is down, but our Instagram reach is up. So, moving ahead at least in the right direction. Parent Square stats are looking good, and we're looking at data so that we hone and refine our own communications to reach families better. And we're working as well on further segmenting our website data so that we can make the content on the site as useful as possible to the different people using it. Okay, a few resource considerations. This is pie in the sky, right? We understand the limitations we're under, especially this budget year, and that there are some really tough decisions. But down the road, these are some things that my team feels would help amplify our reach and help increase awareness of our opportunities. So Facebook is a business, right? And due to its paid advertising model, what's happening now is that organic reach is decreasing, and it will continue to go that way because of the model that they have. They want you to pay to broadcast to a broader audience, and if you're not paying, then fewer people are seeing your content. That's kind of just how it is. A small paid budget could extend our reach, maybe draw in some new followers, and there are tools on there to be able to target by zip code, by different demographics, so an area that could be explored. An outside video vendor, we've noticed this year that our watch time on videos this year is up, and we have a staff member who is dedicated to managing our social media, Emma Dillard, and she has worked to create more video content this year than the previous year. The problem, though, is while my team is very capable and they are very talented in many areas, videography skills it's not something we really have in-house. So looking at opportunities to work with an outside vendor strategically, we have some issues that are really important to the board, that are board goals. Perhaps there are specific issues that would rise to the level that we might want a professional video created. So that could be another opportunity. Parent Square, I mentioned, is working really well in expanding our communication interactions with families. There are features that we don't have access to in our current package. So the ability to poll families, to have forms be easy to sign in Parent Square for whether it's for a field trip or giving permission for a different opportunity. There's the opportunity to submit secure documents over Parent Square or to make payments or recruit volunteers. These are features that would be awesome, but we don't have right now. So. And as I looked at these features, I also believe that they are features that would help us engage with our parents more and would naturally draw them to Parent Square. If you know you have to sign the field trip permission form on Parent Square, you're more likely to download that app. If you know that, okay, I have a kindergartner for the next however many years, I'll be using this app, right? And that just drives parents more to that platform where we can have other opportunities to engage. And then another area where we think our engagement could increase is by implementing or using an AI web support assistant. A lot of other districts are doing this across the country, where there's a feature where an AI assistant can support families so that the information they're looking for is easier to get to. They can ask the bot a question, it could give input or give responses in the language of the family's choice, and help them in especially 24/7. Maybe they're off work really late and they really have questions about what they need to bring to registration, but they don't know how to find the registration page. So they ask the support assistant, and then rather than waiting till the next morning to call the school, they've got that information at 10 o'clock at night and they're ready to go the next day. So just a few options for consideration. But we're continuing to always look for ways to improve our processes and to make sure that our families are informed about the great things happening in our schools.
Ashley, Bryce, and Annie.
So when we started these pillar updates, I recall that the board asked for a few things that I think are helpful to reiterate as we talk about it. And the first is evaluation data, and the second is resource allocation information. And I continue to think embedding those in these presentations is very useful so that the staff presenting and the board have mutually clear ideas about the effort that's going into the presentation. As an example, earlier in this presentation, I'm always impressed by our work in health access. The number of things we do is incredible. I love seeing the number of student physicals, vaccinations, mental health referrals, but I don't always know, as a non-expert, if those numbers are the ceiling. So it'd be great when we can hear an update that says, you know, X percentage of our student athletes did a physical with us. We'd love to get to Y%, but we need intervention Z or resource A from the board or a partner to make that happen. Because the work is so impressive, when we reiterate that when it's a contextual within an ask, we can do a better job of ensuring that we're including that in our budget. And I think Yandri's section is great to end on because it does give those suggestions. Like now I wouldn't be surprised if I saw some of those vendor updates, you know, in our consent agenda for purchase order reports. Or I would know, you know, that we may need to consider resource allocation if that's where we want to continue to grow. I have two questions while everyone's here, while we're talking about those apps. I know we just approved an attendance platform, and I know that that's communicating back and forth with parents. I also know as a parent that Parent Square tries to get me to do the exact same thing, to give it a little message to say what the attendance is, basically. So as we bring new platforms on board, because we think they would be better, how are we making sure that those platforms kind of connect with each other and don't duplicate or confuse efforts? Does that make sense?
This is a great question for Sam Quantz, to whom I will gladly give my chair.
It's a lot of tools.
Just kidding.
So in this particular instance that you brought up, we believe that the new platform called EDA Learning functions only over text. And so we will be turning off the attendance features inside of Parent Square itself. So that system will handle the attendance only. And because of the nature of it, it's also going to reduce some of the administrative burden because that system will automatically update our student information system at the same time. So that'll help. Because a lot of people just receive those messages over text or email anyway rather than an app, we see that there won't be a lot of confusion as we turn off one set and just enable another.
That's really helpful, and knowing that things have to turn off and turn on, I just know there will be a lot of education as we continue to grow these efforts, because if I kind of think I'm doing it right one way and then I'm doing it wrong, and you know, does the form still exist on the website? It seems like there's a lot of things to toggle on and toggle off to make sure this is very successful. The second is just really philosophical. I don't expect an answer, but I know we're trying to reduce student device use, but then we're also constantly kind of accepting the reality that the device is the way that everyone gets the information. And it becomes very difficult for me to follow, you know, all of the school district social media and athletic social media and so forth, and then tell my kids basically, you're not allowed to do that, right? You can't have the information about your own school. So I just think philosophically, for our consideration, it's valuable to consider moving forward how we can, on the one hand, meaningfully reduce screen requirements while simultaneously driving most of the information coming from the district through a device. And it's not a criticism in any way. That is how people get their information. It's just something I'd like us to think about going forward. Thank you for your presentation. Oh, you have something to say about it.
Yeah, no, we've discussed that with my team, and I feel that conundrum in my own life, right? Like, trying to decrease the screen time even for myself as an adult. But I wanted to just kind of put in a plug for Student Square here. I mentioned that we have 9,000 parents who've downloaded that app. I don't have an exact count of students who've downloaded the Student Square app, but we do have about a fourth of our students, and I should clarify, Student Square is the exact same as Parent Square. Parent Square just found that students weren't downloading an app called Parent Square, so they rebranded the exact same app and called it Student Square, and then their download rates went up. So in our district, we only use it to communicate with our secondary students, so middle school and high school. We've also, this year, really worked with our schools to make sure that that is the platform for extracurriculars, for athletics, et cetera, et cetera. Folks don't have to have a device. We know that families are making a lot of different choices as far as their student school usage. And so I mentioned that you don't have to have a a device, a mobile device to be able to access that information. So we're hoping that that's kind of a bit of an equalizer there. And knowing that anything for students will come through there, hopefully will decrease. Like if a student's family chooses not to have them on social media, then we're still reaching them on Student Square. And we know they're logging into their district device, for their high school courses, et cetera.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ashley. I've got Bryce, Annie, and then Foss.
Yeah, I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. First of all, thank you, all of you, for the work that you're doing. This particular pillar is something I'm very interested and invested in, just because of that community connection and the work I do in my professional career. One of the things Yandri did not mention, and I want to give some kudos for, is around the public perception and connection area. One of the things I've been advocating on the board for over the last 5 years is actually being physically out in the community, and I've actually seen a lot of increased work in that. I wanted to give kudos both to Yandri and the superintendent. In Precinct 1 and on the west side, a lot of the feedback I got when I first joined the board is, hey, the district is not out in the community, they're not making themselves present, we don't feel like they care, and I've seen that increase over time. A couple of examples is Yandri and Dr. Ruiz were both at the Westside Coalition annual meeting and had a booth there, which was really, when I talked to community members, they were very excited to see that happen. And then I think it's about 10, 11 days from now, we're also going to have a district booth at the Rhodes Park Community Festival, and I think that's just a great example of getting out, being present, and building some trust. So just wanted to give kudos there.
Thanks, Bryce. Annie, and then Foss.
Yeah, a couple of questions. I do generally think there's room for improvement in kind of the culture of belonging piece, and that reputational culture of the district. I know in previous years there was the use of the dignity index, and I'm wondering, has anything been followed up on that this year, or is that kind of like a one and done scenario?
We are currently training all of our administrators on the Dignity Index, and we're going to continue the next phase next year.
Okay. In terms of that, I've heard a lot of complaints from parents about increased derogatory terms used in our schools, including the N-word, which is, I think, a general trend across the state and unfortunately across the country. And I'm just wondering, like, I love the dignity index, but I'm wondering, like, can we simplify it? Like, put a little bit of teeth in it? I mean, we have policy to support that sort of thing. And I'm just wondering, in those trainings, is there guidance given, like, okay, you're an administrator, a teacher reports that a student said the N-word in class, that student is automatically suspended, or whatever the decision is based on policy. I'm just wondering, because I think part of the culture and the culture of belonging is we're probably the most diverse district in the state, right? We have a huge diverse population, tens, maybe hundreds of languages spoken, so many people, and in order for our schools to feel safe psychologically and physically for all people, that type of language cannot be tolerated in our schools. So I'm just wondering, like, in those types of trainings, is that including policy and like actual teeth in that, or is it just kind of like, this is the dignity index?
So this first part, we talked about what the framework is, so the dignity framework, and then we talked about de-escalation strategies that we can utilize, and then taking perspectives on how people see different situations. And then the next phase that we do next year, we're going to delve deeper into how do you use the index itself and take further action on that. So we're still developing that piece for next year, but we can definitely take that into account.
Yeah, I think a lot of parents in my precinct and area and across the district, I think, are really interested in this. I think our culture in the district is one of belonging, and I know a lot of families who opt in, who are kind of the customers. We're always trying to market the district in a way and attract these families, and part of the reason they come is because they want that diversity and that cultural inclusion. And if we can't make it a respectful environment, then I think we're really losing a huge portion of that culture. Obviously, for moral reasons, we all don't want to see that, but also just for retaining students and enrollment, and for them to have positive experiences, and when they graduate, turn into good, kind human beings. And then the second question I had for Yandri, have you ever engaged like student interns in this type of thing? Because I feel like there are a lot of students engaged on social media, and I'm wondering if the CTE Center or other media classes in the high schools particularly would be willing to like help you with kind of marketing campaigns or videos or whatever, just in case we don't have the budget to do like a third party.
Yes, we actually this semester have our very first high school intern from East High School. She's fantastic, and she has helped us create social media content, create some videos. We are really grateful to our CTE program for helping us to find that intern. It was through the high school coordinator that we were able to get this student placed, and we will continue to do that. It's been a really positive experience. So we are exploring ways to be creative with the talent we have in-house among our students. So thank you for the suggestion.
Great.
So far, so good.
Yeah, great. I think that's something we could expand even.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, Annie. Boss?
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of touch on your rhetorical question, Ashley, about how we can think about using technology in education while also acknowledging that there are obvious downsides to emphasizing technology and the use of social media. I think the fact that you mentioned you're looking for ways to utilize technology to provide access to information without using social media is fantastic and very important. Obviously, it's important to still keep these ways for students to connect with information without the internet at all. Some students don't have access to that, a small percentage, but that's important. But just having that without social media is great. Then also, technology has positives and negatives, and I think looking at the data when we're deciding what things we can leverage to run the district better and what things we should avoid for both communications and for students using technology in classrooms, all these things. Later on, I would pinpoint how we're talking about spending $256,000 on renewing the contract with Lexia Core 5, which is our reading program that helps students in schools improve their comprehension and whatnot. And for that example, I definitely support it. Obviously, it's great to have teachers hands-on with students, but in this case, there was an Idaho study in 2025 that showed how it was the best option for K-3 reading support out of multiple digital and hybrid products that it looked at. There was also a study from Brand Research, which is a nonpartisan research organization that showed that 54% of their Core 5 students outperformed a comparison group on spring reading assessments. So in examples like that, obviously technology has proven itself to be useful and something that we should invest in, and there are other areas where certainly we should be wary of the effects it has on students and the ways that we should be using it to communicate. But I appreciate you looking at that.
May I share something too? This report didn't include data on who our followers are, but it is very, very low in the under 18 range. Most of our followers tend to be millennial women like me. So we know that our outreach on social media is not reaching a lot of young people. So we do keep that in mind as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Boss. Amanda?
I guess back to Sam, you were talking about the system that communicates attendance issues. Which system was that?
EDA Learning.
It's called EDA Learning.
Is that the same one? So last year, Highland High School had an attendance thing where it would let me know that my child missed something, and then I could text back, please excuse, or they totally ditched, just ignore them. But that system's no longer there. It's back to now you've got to contact the attendance person and go through that old way, which was a bummer because the last year's access and communicating that attendance piece made life so much easier. So what happened?
Correct. So that was a pilot last year that was run. That pilot ran out. We had to go through our procurement process of an RFP to search for a vendor, and EDA Learning won that procurement process. And EDA will provide a lot of the functionality, more of the functionality that you're talking about.
So did you already cover, if you did, I apologize, when are those components going to be functional?
They'll be going into place for the 26-27 school year. So we'll be announcing, we're working with a couple of schools, setting everything up right now.
Thank you. And then for Yandri, just a couple of suggestions. One of the things that I've found a little frustrating is the posts aren't always in a timely manner to when the actual event occurred. I'm sure there's a reason for it, but I find that even my own excitement over seeing that event's like marketing or announcement kind of dwindles over time, because there's this next event, there's another event, there's another. So I suspect that the viewership and the participation in those posts and that excitement would increase if they actually were timed closer to when they actually occurred, so that that engagement and that connection with that event is still there. You know, people are feeling those emotions still.
Sure.
So kind of a suggestion there. And then something that, and I don't necessarily know the how, but I attended the Stellar Rail apprenticeship signing. And then I recently attended the Moon Mission Project, is that the right terminology? And being there and hearing, like for the Stellar Rail apprenticeship, and then we're doing the teacher apprenticeship, and just hearing the stories from the employers that are offering these apprenticeships, and the state individual who pointed out that we are the first ones in our entire state that are doing this, and just hearing those words come out of these individuals' mouths, and like these stories of like how excited these businesses are to connect with us, and how, you know, it started with SLF, but where we're at now with that program, and how other districts are now leaning on us to learn how to do similar. My point there really is...
Also time, Amanda, sorry.
I'm almost done, thank you. Figuring out a way to just express it in a way that you're almost shouting it from the rooftops, because like we as a district get criticized quite a bit, but there's so much amazing stuff that's occurring, and like really being able to just explode that out there so that that can be seen and heard would just be phenomenal.
Thanks, Amanda.
Board Member Longwell, would you be interested in me responding to about the?
Of course.
Okay. My team, I mentioned we really try to make decisions that are data based, and we did a little bit of an experiment. We found that our events and our good news kind of ebbs and flows. So sometimes we're, out looking for awesome things, and then sometimes, my goodness, there's so much. We're like, where do we even start? So we ran a little experiment where for a period of time we posted things that day and when they happened, and then we did it over the following couple weeks, posting later to make it easier and more natural with like the workflow for that week. There was not a statistically significant difference in the engagement rate for whether a post was timely or whether it wasn't, and so we've opted to make posts when it makes sense with the workflow. But recently, actually, we have been having conversations. I was thinking about this with the Highland groundbreaking that day. We did not post immediately about that event, and I was feeling the same thing you were saying. So we may alter that based on like the level of the event. But I appreciate that. That's good feedback, because I know that when other people are participating in the event, that they are looking for that post. So we definitely will take that into account. And I agree with you about shouting it from the rooftops. We were really lucky this year. We, our partners at Stadler Rail created a video following one of our apprentices, and we were able to share that. So, they have the talent. They were gracious enough to share that asset with us. We were able to share it on our platforms. And then we had our student intern also make a day in the life of the comms student intern this semester. And those posts got really good engagement. We were just talking with the CTE team yesterday as we announce our new teacher apprentices tomorrow, how can we do the same thing? Like, here I am as a classroom assistant in a kindergarten room, and then now it's B day, so I'm over here at the college taking some classes. So we are looking for ways to expand that, and thank you for your feedback, and we appreciate how much you're engaged, and the other board members too. We get excited every time you text us photos or tell us about events you've been at and send us things, so please keep doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for this amazing team who's tackling Pillar 3 for us? Thank you. We really appreciate it. All right, we will now move to our discussion agenda. We've got 3 items to review here tonight. The first one is the Salt Lake Center for Science Education SLCSD Charter Extension. We're really excited to have you back. This is the 3rd time, I believe, Brittany Powell, that you were here, and I know we gave some direction to the district about an extension of the charter for 5 years with room for amendment in subsequent years or next year. So is there anybody that wants to start the discussion or present a motion?
I move that we place the Salt Lake Center for Science Education SLCSD Charter Extension as attached in Exhibit 3E1 on the action agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Amanda?
Yeah, and I'm kind of skipping ahead, but it's correlated, that we're talking about the charter extension and then the building lease. So as we are discussing both, my request would to me, it makes sense to make sure that the new ones are set to the same timeline, because like the current on one is 3 years, and then we're changing it to 5 years, and so we presume that we want our lease to correlate with the charter extension, and then have the language for the lease as well as the charter extension to have the flexibility for amendments and such. So ensuring that language correlates with each other.
Thank you, Amanda. B.A. Kearsley, is there anything that you'd want to add to that, or?
No, I mean, we'll discuss the lease on the next agenda topic.
Okay, thank you. And we'll discuss it again on the action agenda too. So. Annie?
I just wanted to kind of revisit this because this has been something that's been on my mind, and I know it's on a lot of parents' minds in the district, is this general idea of kind of pioneering, improving our academic programs, allowing things, doing additions. For example, SLCSD Middle School, right? We had tried the partnership with Bryant. It didn't work as we thought, and now they're asking for SLCSD middle grades to be put back in SLCSD. And then at the same time, there's this really big friction, especially that the board feels in terms of budgets and enrollment numbers and demographics. And so it's really a tricky fine line for us to balance in terms of we're wanting to improve programs, but we don't necessarily have a ton of resources to allocate to that. And as we discussed in last board meeting, there's a little bit of a fear that if we were to extend a charter for SLCSD to include middle grades, that would detract from some of our WPUs from our other middle schools, right? So I do want to just acknowledge that tension, because I think it's something that a lot of parents have pointed out to me, that it's tricky for us because we're trying to kind of catch up and be smart and fiscally responsible, but at the same time, we want to improve our schools and increase our enrollment so that families want to stay here or families want to come here because it's such a great district, right? So I'm just pointing out this tension, and that because of this, the funding in the limits we have on that, I think we're trying to be creative. But I do want to just acknowledge that I think SLCSD has demonstrated a lot of amazing work, and they've been a great charter for us to partner with.
No, that's our time.
Oh, I'll just do my.
We've gone 3 hours.
I'll just do my last little bit.
Not over.
So I just wanted to say that in the memo for this item, it says the board will revisit the request to add 6 grades 6, 7, and 8 in April of 2027. And I feel like if we do that, they would then discuss it for fall of 2029, possibly, right? Because they wouldn't have enough time, or fall of 2028, excuse me. They wouldn't have enough time to do it in fall of 2027. I'm wondering, it doesn't seem like it's in the actual charter agreement, that is not stated, but I'm just encouraging that we may want to look at it sooner, like February or January, possibly because there's going to be a different board, and we may want to consider those options. I know we were pairing it kind of with the possible G5 closure process and trying to do that together, but I do think we can't always pair our innovation and school improvement with our decline. Because if we're doing that, then we're missing out on a lot of opportunities. If we're always just scarcity mindset, we're losing kids, we're gonna have to close schools, then at the same time, we're a self-fulfilling prophecy and we will lose kids and we will close schools. So I know this is kind of philosophical, but I just had to put it out there.
And Dr. Grant?
No, that's fine.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, discussion? All right, seeing none, this is to move the SLCSD charter renewal to our action agenda. We'll do a roll call vote starting with Board Member Fife Jefferson.
Charlotte Fife Jefferson, yes.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Yanni Romano, yes.
Brian Jensen, yes.
Amanda Longo, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
All right, that motion passes. We'll revisit that on the action agenda. Item number 2 of the discussion agenda is SLCSD building lease. Alan?
All right, so the attachment to the agenda is the current lease. This lease largely has remained unchanged since SLCSD's inception, just with the dates. So as we look, as Board Member Longwell talked about, to line these up so that we're renewing the lease and the charter at the same time. So this is the first time we've discussed this lease, so this is probably just more of a discussion versus action today. The lease expires June 30th, so we have a couple more board meetings before the expiration. So the lease that's attached largely lays out the responsibilities of SLCSD as the tenant, the district as the landlord. There's no money exchanged in this lease agreement. And guess what? I have problems with that. But, I mean, I think, I wasn't involved in conversations when the lease was originally set up, but we had an empty school. That's the old Northwest building. When the new Northwest building was made, was built, the middle school moved it up to the new building, and then we had this empty building. Much like conversations we currently are having. So it was a good option of, hey, what are we gonna do with this building? Hey, we wanna start this charter school, let's let them use that building. And it helped us defer a lot of the day-to-day maintenance, so, because as laid out in the lease, that is the responsibility of SLCSD. Where the district is on the hook is if the major things go wrong, if the HVAC goes out, if the roof needs replacing, if, some major, walls fall down, we have to fix that, and we have to fix it with our capital funds. So I think the discussion amongst the board is, are we okay with that? Or should we build in some sort of monthly rent payment or lease payment that the district in theory could put in a fund and then use those monies when these major things come to then fix them, so we're not dipping into the district capital funds?
I saw Ashley and then Amanda.
This is something that we talked about briefly in the finance committee, and I will say that we did ask Alan to please come to us after this discussion, hearing what other people had to say, with clear recommendations on what he thinks would be ideal in a lease. And finance committee members, this half of the table, we agreed that it would be a good objective to be revenue neutral, and we thought it sounded reasonable to say any type of fee would be going into a reserve that would then be spent on that building. And we used the example of the plumbing emergency at Open Classroom as something we would need to take up also potentially for that space at Lowell, where some of those buildings, when we manage the regular maintenance, that is fine. When we end up managing the emergency maintenance, it becomes more problematic in terms of the long-term capital needs of all of our neighborhood schools. So we felt it was reasonable for Alan to pursue determining what would help us be revenue neutral and using the model of recapturing the money for that building. So any fee is not, there's not some idea where a tenant is paying and we're taking the money and we're using it to pay for XYZ other program. It's going back into preparation for the needs of that building, which is not considered in our capital plan in quite the same way. So that's what Finance Committee thought. Other people may, agree or disagree, but our suggestion was take that feedback, pursue the bottom line of attempting to be revenue neutral, and ask Alan to please come back, that third time with what he thinks the recommendation would be for a lease agreement.
Thanks, Ashley. Amanda and then Brian.
Yeah, ditto everything Ashley said. Additionally, so I had emailed, after the Finance Committee, when this agenda came out, I emailed Alan some very specific questions. And did you get a chance to dig into them, or?
All right, I dug into one, I think. Can you remind me all the questions?
So what I asked was, and I'll just say this verbatim, basically. Hold on, maybe not verbatim. You responded with, we charge indirect cost rate, which is about 3% of their total expenditure, which roughly covers business services, payroll, HR, finance, purchasing, etc., which is around 70 to 88,000 a year. So my question was.
That number actually, so it was 130 for last year.
Okay.
It's been a while since I've done that entry, so that was what it was back when I was doing that entry, so it was about 130 last year.
Okay. And then my follow-up question is, what is the market rental rate that would be on the property? And my intention in asking that isn't anything nefarious. Like Ashley pointed out, our conversation really was about a revenue neutral approach, but covering our costs and buffer in the process instead of potentially another area that we are going in the hole in. And so, again, what the market rental rate is compared to what we're doing, as well as, so the comment you had said before is that basically roughly that's covering certain expenses. And so I was like, well, what's the reality? Breaking down what is actually being spent on that property and everything that we do outside of what's compensated back. So you were gonna work on that list. And then again, my reiteration of lease versus contract renewal, charter extension, making sure that the terminology lines up. So if you don't have the answer yet, I mean, we're obviously not making discussion or action today, but breaking that baby down so we can, at the end of the day, be in that revenue neutral area as we are contemplating locking in this lease agreement.
Yeah, I have some of the information.
Okay.
After a quick inquiry with a real estate company, JLL, that we're using for this other stuff, they came back with, similar properties in the area are going for somewhere between $13 and $17 a square foot for the year. The SLCSD building has about 112,000 square feet. So that range is anywhere between $1.4 million and $1.9 million a year.
Wow.
No, we're not proposing that, Brittany.
Because I'd be looking for another job.
But what I don't have yet, what I need to get is, looking at Isaac's 50, both the 5-year plan and the 50-year plan, to kind of look forward and say, what are the estimates of the big expenditures in this building? And then what would it take to, so when these things hit, that there's money in those reserves accounts to either totally pay for it, offset, so that's something I still need to work on.
Okay, and then aligning with that and your comment, Brittany, we're honestly not trying to catch you off guard here. But while Alan's working on his bit, you probably could be working on kind of from your perspective piece so that we can take a whole picture into this equation as we're trying to lock into what makes sense in a healthy dynamic. Nobody's out to get you, so to speak. It's just being reasonable.
Thanks,
sure like Horizonte's portion of our building is worth like 5 times that amount?
And I will say the 112,000 is the whole building.
Thank you, Alan, and thank you, Brittany, for bringing some light to a meeting that's getting late, so thank you. I've got Brian, and then Annie, and then Charlotte.
Okay, this was, because when I looked at it, excuse me, you asked for us to look at the lease and, you know, if there were any provisions. Well, in my past life, I looked at lots of leases and things like that. One of the things that I wanted to ask about was, there is a provision, and I don't want to take the time to, you know, reference all of that, but they can ask for the school to do maintenance and stuff like that, and then the school does it and you charge them. I have seen in leases where the landlord is also able to, if they aren't maintaining, the landlord can go in and maintain and build, so that you're certain that you're preserving your building. And I didn't see that provision in there as I was looking through it. So that's my observation.
Thanks, Brian. Annie, and then Charlotte.
Yeah, I think this is an important discussion, and I understand the capital needs. I do want to protect our public charters and want them to feel, obviously, incentivized to be part of the district. And I think they are, because they're included in a lot of these things, and the lease agreements have been very favorable. I do think, though, that it would be wise to have it be across the board policy. So knowing the open classrooms lease is not up for renewal at this moment, I do think that we need to highly consider that, because it could be a policy that we use across the board, and whatever formula we use to calculate that is used for open classroom as well. That being said, I hope it's low, because I want them to do well and I want them to succeed. But I do understand that there are significant costs, and we know what our budget is and we know what our expenses are. So just saying, I do think this is a larger discussion, not solely about just this lease. I think it's a discussion about what's our general policy on leasing buildings, because honestly, in the future, we may want to look into it with this JLL study and our empty school buildings from G5.
And then I'm wondering what other districts do. You know, do you know about that?
Most other districts don't have charter schools.
They don't have public charters.
Correct.
Well,
They
which
may-
ones
they
do?
may- They may lease a building, but they're leasing it at market rate to an independent charter.
Isn't Ames a public charter?
Yes.
Well, what do they do?
I don't know.
Okay.
Thanks, Charlotte. Any other comments, questions? We're not necessarily looking for a decision tonight, so we could.
Thank you, thank you, Finance Committee. I think that it was really important for us to hear that you are having that conversation, and I can understand, yeah, the revenue neutral aspect of this, relying on you.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 3 on our discussion agenda, which is ACT/Aspire date. As you know, the 26-27 school calendar year is under development as we speak, and there's a request from the superintendent and the district that we adopt March 10th, 2027 as a potential date. Dr. Taylor, I see you walking up, so I'll let you introduce this more than I already have.
Good evening, everyone. I was coming up to see if we had any questions. We've distributed information regarding the request. If there are any additional questions, we'll be more than happy to address them.
Amanda?
Since I was the one that was the most vocal about it, I mean, I don't have anything other to say, given we just don't have options. I mean, hopefully at some point we can align our school calendar to be more friendly to this. We've already locked in the next 3 years, so that particular piece is a moot point, but hopefully future renditions we consider it, because I did go back to Lisa and ask him how other districts' ACT days aligned with their term end, and all but one other their term ended before they were doing the ACT test, so the kids were dealing with finals and everything else on top of the ACT stress. So that being said, I make a motion to move this ACT request to the action agenda.
I second.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote, starting with Board Member Anderson.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Annie Romano, yes.
Ryan Jensen, yes.
Sorry.
Manalai, well, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Charlotte Fife Jefferson, yes.
All right, so that motion passes. We will now move on to the action agenda. We have 2 items here this evening. We've got the SLCSD charter renewal. Ashley.
I'm trying to incorporate the language's direction, but also move this. I move that we approve the Salt Lake Center for Science Education SLCSD charter extension, also called an amendment, as posted in Exhibit 3E1. The board would further direct staff to ensure the draft lease agreement aligns with this amendment language, and remember our obligation to place their middle school request on an agenda in April 2027 or sooner if board members request it be placed on the agenda following the applicable board policy.
I second.
We got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion to the motion? All right, seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote, starting with Board Member Romano.
Annie Romano, yes.
Ryan Jensen, yes.
Manalai, well, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Charlotte Fife Jefferson, yes.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes. That motion passes. Thank you, Brittany and Diane, for being here tonight and all that you do for SLCSD. We're excited to see what you do in the future, and we'll look to see having you back sooner, but certainly in April and maybe sooner too.
I'll be back in 2 weeks, like yours.
I know. That's why I added the sooner. Thank you for all you do. Our next and final action item this evening is ACT Aspire Date.
I make a motion to approve the ACT Day request for March 10th, 2027.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ashley. Any further discussion? Ashley?
I just have a question for Dr. Taylor, if this is sufficient or if we need to make an additional motion or amend the motion to include that this is an asynchronous learning day, which was part of the original consent memo.
For clarity purposes, that would be perfect.
So I think we can vote on.
I take my motion back.
Thank you,
Ashley,
Amanda.
take it over.
Is there-
So I would make a motion that we move to approve the March 10th, 2027 date for the ACT as posted in Exhibit 3E3. And this will include creating an asynchronous learning day for grades 9, 10, and 12. Is that accurate?
Dr. Taylor.
Yes.
Second.
You got a motion and a second. Any further discussion to the new motion? All right, seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote, starting with Vice President Jensen.
Ryan Jensen, yes.
Manalai, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Charlotte Fife Jefferson, yes.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Annie Romano, yes.
All right, that motion passes. Thank you, Board. We will now move on to the Superintendent's report, if you have one.
That'd be great. I'd love to call out some wonderful things that have happened. Board Member Longwell mentioned the Moon Mission event that we had at Riley Elementary. I just want to thank the Salt Lake Education Foundation for funding again, helping us bring in that VR, virtual reality program to all of our middle school students this year. Really is, I hope you all have had a chance to put on those VR goggles and watch the Mars buggy and Moon missions. This was a fun event because, again, this makes you want to go back. This is the only reason to go back to middle school, and that is that the students wrote essays about the moon. Those essays are etched on a small crystal CD, like they were last year. They will go up in the next moon mission and be left on the moon. So the rest of their lives, they will have their written words on the moon.
Makes me want to cry.
And in addition to that, I know, it's amazing this project, what Uplift Aerospace has done with partners, with Boeing and other partners to provide this for our students. The other thing is each of the middle schools chose a winner of the essay contest. So 5 students will be able to go to the Kennedy Space Center and watch a rocket go off.
Oh, that's so cool.
Not only that, we had an astronaut, a woman who works with Blue Origin, who has been up in space, speak to the students, as well as an aeronautics and philanthropist and movie producer and a real estate magnate and
their display was
on
phenomenal.
YouTube. I have just forgotten his
The
name.
whole setup was amazing.
Anyway,
I have it.
speak to the students about their futures that way and what's possible. Thank you, Mr. Brandon Fugel, who brought with him an artifact from the Apollo 11 mission that he had then showed to the students, and then I believe that had gone up with the Artemis. And actually, Utah, the Artemis mission would not have gone without Utah engineers and what they built into the rockets. So fun that we're growing an aerospace industry in Salt Lake and that these companies want to expose our children to the wonders of that, as well as STEM education. And I want to thank board members for being there and cheering that on. The Advanced Manufacturing Apprenticeship has been mentioned too. 30 students applied, 17 were given positions, including board member Longwell's daughter, Alexa, as well as Mindy Homedale's son, who will be taking that on. The only difficulty was in the evening was that 13 students weren't placed. So we need more partners in that program, and actually one of them was there and wants to sign on with us to be another partner and provide opportunity for our students. Tomorrow evening is our teacher apprenticeship, where Salt Lake City School District is building with Salt Lake Community College, and with the help of Logan and Tiffany in making this happen, and certainly with Laura DeShazo, who's been working on this in the CTE realm. We're trying to build with Salt Lake Community College and the University of Utah an ecosystem, this virtuous ecosystem where we provide our talent to the colleges, they train them and send them back to us to teach in our schools, some of the best. So over the next years, as that cycle goes and our students are able to earn a bachelor's degree without debt and serve in our classrooms as classroom aides and paraprofessionals and help solve some of our paraprofessional struggles, as well as our special ed teacher struggles, because it's got a special ed teacher pipeline too, as well as elementary. So we're excited about that. I am sure we will hear from a couple of people down the row here about West High Robotics, but we need to give a shout out to them. Are you guys taking that on?
No, go for it.
Go for it.
Our West High Robotics team, which has consistently led our district and shown up in the state as a robotics leader, now as a robotics leader in the nation. They are the first time, we, Salt Lake City School District, sent a robotics team to the national competition where they, with their allies, came in 5th among teams, making it to the final Einstein round for the first time that we've had a team do that. So congratulations and huge kudos to the teachers who have built that program up over the years. Those programs don't pop up out of the blue. They actually come with a lot of work over a lot of years where you're building up interest and skill with your students. So thank you for that work. I want to give a shout out to East High School, who also celebrated their high school musical gala on Friday night. A thank you to the PTA and the teachers and the students for a successful event there, and taking advantage of the 20th anniversary of High School Musical, as well as just providing a wonderful night for their students and the community there. I do want to mention one thing, because the community is going to be antsy about this. Sadly and disappointingly, Principal Ryan Oakes will be leaving for positions that aren't quite as challenging as high school principal. He has resigned from his principalship there at East High. We are acting on this quickly, and we'll work to connect with the community about next steps, but I wanted people to know that we are responding to that fast and want to bring in such talent again into East High, and appreciate what he has done there in the school. And we'll have him until the end of the year and end of June, but just wanted to let the community know as that starts to spread out that we're on it and looking, and we'll work very hard to find an exceptional principal for that school.
Thank you, Dr. Grant. I'm going to go ahead and start on this end of the table. Amanda, you're first. Thank you.
Okay. First off, soon-to-be happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers in the world, or the motherly caregivers. We all work very hard. So, I promise to you. And then a Teacher Appreciation Week. I wish I had this picture. Yandri, you got a copy of it. I'm hoping you'll post it. A parent for my child's class did the door for their teacher, and is usually not moved by the door decorations. And this one, he was smiling cheek, like ear to ear, and just beyond happy. I'll have to share it with y'all so you can see it. So thank you for all the teachers and all of your hard work. You are what makes this everything work. We couldn't do it without you. Overemphasizing the teacher apprenticeship, you mentioned it. It's not just for gen ed teachers, which are very important, but it's also for special education teachers and their pathway. And we have students, Laura DeShazo, my words are not working anymore, mentioned how a student is intentionally seeking this apprenticeship to go into the special education program. Really a lot of interest in the behavior specialist realm, which is just phenomenal to see that they're seeing that access is there and they're utilizing it. We talked about the Moon Symposium. Highland High School is having their Arts and Traditional Festival on Thursday, I believe, and from 5 to 7. It's a really fun outdoor event, weather cooperating. And then Military Appreciation Month. I feel like we need to honor and remember all those who are serving and have served, especially given the current climate of things. So thank you to our veterans, and thank you for those in active duty. Be safe out there.
Thanks, Amanda. Bryce?
Yeah, I have a couple of things, but I'll try to be quick. I also wanted to acknowledge Teacher Appreciation Week. Thank you for all that you do. If it wasn't for the teachers in my life, I would not be sitting at this board table right now. And I wanted to give a special shout out to a teacher who made a big impact in my life, Vivian Schell, who is also a current employee of our district. So she may or may not be listening, but I very much wanted to recognize her in the work and the impact she had on my life. I had the opportunity to attend the Seal of Civic Readiness event earlier last week. And got to be a judge for that, and that was really great to see all of the great civics projects that our students are working on. A couple weekends ago, I attended the Utah School Boards Association Board of Directors meeting. There's some different outcomes that have come out of that I will share with board members, probably after our next meeting in June, but wanted folks to be aware that there is also some changes to the Master Board certification process, and that'll be forthcoming next month or two. Also wanted to acknowledge the teacher apprenticeship event that's happening tomorrow. I'll be attending that. Very excited to do that. Both board member Anderson and I on Saturday morning, attended the Native American Youth Day at Rose Park Elementary. It's a great event. It's probably my favorite event that I attend as a board member every year. And I wanted folks to know that there's an additional opportunity to celebrate our Native students at the Title VI honoring ceremony on March 26th. If you have not been to that before, I highly encourage you to attend that.
May 26th.
26th. Did I say 8?
You said March.
Oh, wow. May 26th. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Bryce. Ashley?
Yes, I will defer the update on the quarterly city leadership meeting to board leadership who are also in attendance, but I'll give a quick update from my other committee service acknowledging some of these items were addressed elsewhere in the meeting because we're actively in the budget cycle. So in the finance committee, we've long been directed to determine the cost of Choose Gang Free as an alternative to Promising Youth, which the district uses. Because necessary staff were out on leave, we do not want to, or we don't have the update on this, but I don't want to miss the chance to potentially fund Choose Gang Free in this budget cycle. So I really want to prioritize that request at our next meeting because it was made in January of the Finance Committee. We did have a zero-based budgeting report from Alan where we discussed a critical need to decrease district office staffing in relation to the decreases that are imposed upon schools. One challenge that Alan expressed is that schools have an FTE allocation based on clear mathematical ratios, and those standards are not universally applied across offices. We did direct Alan to follow up on zero-based budgeting conversations and on some potential feasibility of examples, as I shared before, such as reallocating certain line items like family school collaboration and community education coordinators to utilize on gaps, including the potential gap in social workers. We acknowledged as 3 committee members that the greatest need to find reductions in the district office budgets is to reflect that schools and families do value student-facing providers and see the roles in our schools as the most critical to fund. We also acknowledge that a majority of the land trust funds that we improved include intervention, which makes it a global budget need, and this adds to a need to evaluate our current coaching model. While individual board members on the committee don't always have consensus on exactly how to address the alarming deficits, we do agree that roles which directly serve students are our most critical obligation. And Alan was directed with a few additional action items that he can report on at a later time in the interest of time and also because he is just stepped out of the meeting. Next Wednesday, I will attend the Parks and Rec Advisory Board Committee meeting and I'll share that discussion in my next board member report. Outside of committee service, I have had the great fortune to be in the audience for the Seal of Civic Readiness, Ensign's Earth Day Expo, including the 6th grade interpretive hike on the trail to their school, the West High Dance Company Spring Concert, the Wasatch Arts Showcase, the Washington PTO Yard Sale, and Native American Youth Day at Rose Park Elementary. As Bryce mentioned, I also want to say that Gail, Grandma Gail, who works at West High, often writes to the board, and it is her grandson who won the t-shirt competition. So that's why we're wearing his t-shirt design. These events are, above all, celebrations of the great work in the district and the efforts of parents, community partners, and teachers to provide positive experiences. They do raise 2 things that I do want to highlight. The first is there is some negative impact on CTE allocations to the fine arts at West High, but I'm going to defer that to our student board member who I understand shares the same concern. The second is just appreciation of our science coaching model. At the Ensign Earth Day Expo, it's clear that our science coaches work directly with students on specific projects and place-based experiential learning. I do want to highlight that science coaches are an example of a position that does rotate between schools, that is still student-facing, and helps to support teachers by taking some of the instruction off their plate. The work that they're doing is incredible. Not all of our models are the same, so I just want to give a chance to highlight that this is a model that I think balances a lot of needs and is very successful. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashley. Foss.
As Ashley said, I have a couple concerns surrounding the reductions to the visual arts department at West High School. Previously this week, I've interviewed several of the teachers in the department to get their perspectives and experiences with the cuts that are being made. And before this meeting, I talked with Dr. Ruiz about some of my concerns and ran her over the 2-page document that I put together. I'll forward that to everyone on the board, but she said that if there was a time that it felt relevant to your discussion, Dr. Grant, she might go over it with you as well. One of the key concerns is that the district has prioritized CTE education, which is wonderful in many cases, but in this particular case, the only way that West has been able to find to fund its arts department without significant cuts to staffing, as they were required to cut 1 FTE from each core subject, was to provide an excess of CTE courses to the point where the number of students in each CTE course who select it for themselves is only around 10 students, while the non-vocational arts courses are expected to fill completely, and then the CTE courses will be backfilled by students who are more interested in the traditional fine arts courses. So in that situation, I think many of my fellow students and the teachers are simply concerned about the way that the district's choice to emphasize CTE education is actually negatively affecting student outcomes in this instance. And it's also led to one of our arts teachers who's been teaching for 20 years choosing to retire. Because for him, he felt like if he was to stay, he would need a certain schedule that allows him to teach teach the courses that he loves. And the department was willing to go ahead and provide him with those courses while taking more CTE courses that they were less interested in or less qualified to teach, to allow him to stay. He felt that was morally wrong to retire instead. So there's just a number of negative impacts on students, both in terms of their choice and the teaching staff of the department. That was obviously unintentional by the district by prioritizing and giving more funding, to my understanding, to CTE courses. I just wanted to highlight that, and I'll send along some of the information I put together on it to see if anything can be done, or just in future as teachers felt like they weren't heard. Thank you.
Thanks, Foss. Brian?
Well, several of you have already referred to teacher appreciation, but I wanted to recognize that as a teacher. There's no way I could start to name the teachers that I have watched make incredible impacts in the lives of thousands of students, and I just want to continue to thank you for all that you do. Next, I had the honor of being able to participate in the groundbreaking of the Highland rebuild, and I thought that that was a wonderful event, and it was fun as an alumni of Highland High to be able to acknowledge this new building. Anyway, in that, in my comments there, I had walked through Highland, and I have so many incredible memories of experiences that I had there, and I'm excited for what this new building will provide for those students that walk its halls. Next, there have been several wonderful art and science nights in my precinct, and I just want to thank the students that worked hard to create that art or science projects, and then the parents that supported them, and then for the community that in so many ways makes this an event not only recognizing excellence, but also helping to raise funds to support continuing programs in those schools. Beacon Heights has had theirs, Uinta had theirs, it's fun to, Bonneville had theirs. It's incredible the work that they do. Indian Hills has theirs on the 14th. I'm excited for that one, and Dilworth's is this Thursday. I'm also planning on attending the teacher apprenticeship program tomorrow. And I'm also hoping that I'll be able to see the USBA policy seminar that'll be tomorrow as well. Then just to report on the policy subcommittee, we will be meeting on May 26th, but we have also had, well, we're now in the process of figuring out how to schedule some additional times because there's a number of policies that we've been directed to look at. So that report won't come in the next meeting because we won't have had our meeting, but it will come in the June meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Annie?
Yeah, shout out to all the teachers. Thank you so much for all of the hard work you do. I was able to attend Thank You Thursday at Horizonte, where we highlighted a teacher, and think it's a great initiative by SLEF in order to do that. And I'm also so appreciative of the PTOs and all of the parents who work hard to try to treat teachers this week. I was with parents working really hard with that paper on the doors, and it's a long process. Anyway, also East High School Foundation, thank you so much to the engaged parents. Charlotte, Brian, and I were able to meet with them briefly, and they also put on an amazing high school musical bash. The new drum line was featured, which is exciting for East, and it was very well done and put together. I was able to attend the Highland High groundbreaking, which was awesome. The Elko Community Council, East of Liberty Park Community Council, and engage with community members on their questions and needs regarding the school district. Happy Earth Day, which was a couple weeks ago, but I just wanted to shout out all of the teachers, particularly science teachers who did meaningful activities on those days, and also just acknowledge that the district is trying to be very careful stewards of our natural resources and has a pretty aggressive sustainability plan, which has been led by students. And so I think that's great to highlight on Earth Day. I was able to complete a state auditor's training since I was appointed to the board on an off kind of cycle. I finally did some of that stuff, and it prepared me for budgeting. And just want to shout out to all of the social workers who are also doing such meaningful work with the students. I plan on doing a couple more community councils. Hopefully tomorrow night I'll be able to sit in on the Bryant Portrait of a Graduate discussion with Assistant Superintendent Ruiz. And maybe I can also swing by with teacher apprenticeships if I can squeeze everything in. But yes, generally, thank you so much, teachers.
Thank you, Annie. Charlotte?
Oh, I was also able to do go to a few of the events that were already mentioned. The Moon Mission and Symposium. That was incredible. And I just thought, wow, yeah, made me want to actually go to middle school. I skipped that. I went to a high school, but very cool for those students. Just really high quality. And I was able to go see over a dozen fire cadets do training at the Salt Lake City Fire Training Tower. And they put out car fires, and they were wrestling with hoses and trying to get up ladders, and they worked hard. I was like, whoa, they're really working these guys hard. It's actually called Hell Week. So they put them through a lot, and they get to really feel what it's like to be a firefighter. And there were girls and boys, and I think some of them are going to be wildland firefighters, right? They've signed up for it. And I went to a Thank You Thursday event. It was at Franklin, Edison, and Parkview, and we surprised 3 second grade teachers, and I wish I had their names, but they're amazing. Teachers are heroes, and it's amazing to see how much the kids love their teachers, and how much the teachers really felt appreciated. So with all the incredible things going on in our district, I don't know why anybody would ever choose to homeschool, It just doesn't make any sense, okay?
Thank you, Charlotte. I'll go ahead and finish this up. I'll also be pretty brief. As Board Member Anderson noted, we did have a quarterly meeting with the City Council and their leadership. So they are represented by Chair Pui and Vice Chair Erica Carlson, and then Dan Dugan also joined us as the CRA Chair. And then we were represented by myself and Vice President Jensen and Board Member Anderson as our TIF expert, as we've already established over numbers of meetings over the last few years, which is awesome. We had a really, really good discussion. Some of the topics that we covered were like kind of West and Highland construction updates, but specifically in the realm with West, talking about like parking and transportation issues that we might be running up against or will run up against with big events that are happening in the city, specifically with the Salt Lake Temple reopening and open houses that are going to be taking place this year, and then anticipating how we might learn to better engage with our community, with our neighborhoods and our schools when the Olympics come. So those are some really, really big things that have had impacts in the past, and we just want to make sure that we're doing right to make sure that students are getting to school on time and getting home when they need to. We also talked about topics like school resource officers, tax increases and budgets. E-bike safety was a really big one that I think the community can anticipate some outreach about, specifically safety, how fast these e-bikes go, and helmets that, regular bike helmet isn't gonna cover, the safety needs, because of the speed, that these e-bikes go. So we just wanna put some awareness out there, jointly and collectively with the city, to make sure that our students and families, know what resources and options are available to them. We are planning our next meeting to be in September. And then we also discussed the potential and possibility, which everybody in the room really seemed to like, of having a joint Salt Lake City Council meeting, Salt Lake City School District Board of Education meeting, to talk about some of our shared interests. It's been a topic that, like, Bryce and I have talked about over the years. Brian and I have talked about it as well. I think previous boards have talked about it. Just scheduling and all the other elements that, that we're up against, over the past few years have kind of gotten in the way of that. But we would like to get that going and scheduled soon. Brian and I are working on an update with more details on these topics and some of the ones that I missed, to the board, as soon as we can. And then thank you, Bryce, for acknowledging teachers, everybody for acknowledging teachers. I can't not, during this month, acknowledge a teacher who I would say saved my life in so many ways, and that's Dr. Terry Razan. I don't know, Mike, if you ever knew Dr. Terry Razan. She was the special ed teacher at East. I was a peer tutor, and I tell the story a lot, I'll tell it again, but I think you're only supposed to do that for 2 terms, and they let me do it for like 3.5 years because it kept me in school. So, so I got a shout out to Dr. Razan. She's amazing. Thank you, Dr. Terry. We do have a need for a closed session. I will entertain a motion.
I move that on May 5th, 2026, the board enter closed session to discuss collective bargaining and the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual, and that the board adjourn immediately upon the conclusion of closed session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote, starting with Board Member Longwell.
Amanda Longley, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Charlotte Fife Jefferson, yes.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Fanny Romano, yes.
Ryan Jensen, yes.
All right, thank you everybody for joining us virtually and in person tonight. Appreciate you.